the like, share the show, share clips. If you're on Twitch, you can clip the show and share it out on your socials. The same thing is true of the live streams on YouTube. If you want to clip those, all that is turned on. You're able to do it. If you find a moment that you think is particularly great, let us know, and we'll pull it. I mean, I personally, it's hard for me to even try because they all feel great to me, but I realize I'm not an impartial judge. But joining us right now, our dear friend Boston Brian. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
What's going on, my friend? How are you? First and foremost, how are you? How's summer?
She's good. She's it's the like the day after, the day after is the rough part of chemo. It's like the third and fourth days when you're cooking and it feels funky.
Well, please send my best.
I will. I will. And then I've got to be out of town like 3 days this week because I've got I got the jam tomorrow night. I got rehearsal on Wednesday night. I got Thursday night at the Viper Room with Nerd Halen, and then Friday I've got Flappers. So, and my brain is
You're all over the
everywhere.
place, Christ.
Yeah. I kind of jam it all together so that I can spend most of my time here. So I try
No, it
to,
makes sense. Makes sense.
yeah, but
Yeah, knock it all out at one time.
exactly. So, we were just talking about with the lovely and talented John Fugelsang, author of the book "The Separation of Church and Hate," which everybody should pick up on at your favorite bookseller. That Donald Trump's poll numbers right now are super sucky, and to use a technical term, they are in the shitter. And there was this weird peak on Friday after the market manipulation push that he did all afternoon, where it went back up. And I'm sure you saw this, but the maggot media were dancing a jig everywhere to all the haters. Donald Trump has won. It's over. Everything's gonna be roses and lollipops and follow the yellow brick road. Right? That it's
Well,
on
they
stuff.
couldn't say rainbows. We know that, right?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, because not for reasons you would think. It's because it apparently Cash Patel and Vance are very sensitive about it for some reason we've yet to figure out. But that's anybody's
Right.
guess.
But with all that tap dancing, how they failed to recognize that even what was it down to 80, $84 a barrel is still some $30 a barrel more than we were paying before the war started. You know what I
Right,
mean? So you can do all the tap dancing you want, but again, as I continue to say on the show, there's no metric that you could bring to me that you could show me that shows us that that we are better off now, that this was beneficial to us in any way, shape, or form. There's just
right,
no way you could possibly do it. So I mean, these people are just outright telling on themselves when you see them out there doing the propaganda, dancing a jig to news that they know themselves is detrimental in and of itself. Just having to
right,
announce something like that, even to have to announce going from 120 to 84 or 100 to like just
right.
that announcement shows you the incompetency, shows you the arrogance and the failures of this administration.
Well, and again, increasingly the question is, do they view it as a failure? Is Trump even capable of recognizing his failures? And for a while, it seemed like he was sort of impervious to it, like he actually believed what he was saying. Now, I think it's abundantly clear that he knows he's manipulating and lying to not just to it used to be to fuck with the press or flip the story around. Now it is clearly to quell the markets and get MAGA back under wing for the midterms. Which, by the way, I would argue if you're gonna sell some sort of like I solved it overnight, it's done, we're safe, you'd save that for like 2 days before the election, because by the time they find out it was bullshit, and get mad at you again, they've already voted. But this early in the year, there's going to be 30 more of these moments, and they're not, I mean, even the dumbest of them are not going to forget. Look at Alex Jones. Holy shit. Like, MAGA's dead. Donald Trump has been taken over by demons. Like, Tucker Carlson's calling him the Antichrist, which I think gives him too much credit. I think he's the anti Jesus. I don't think he's the Timu Antichrist. I don't think he's charming enough to be the actual Antichrist. And the Antichrist, in theory, according to I think the Book of Daniel, can quote scripture better than the rabbis can. And obviously, yeah, I rest my case.
But I think the question is, does Donald Trump care? Like, I know he cares about people talking shit about him, right? I know he
Hmm.
cares about, people that are supposed to be towing the party line, not towing the party line. But does he give a shit about the bad polling? Because does he give a shit about Alex Jones and the dissolving of MAGA, the MAGA base? I know it's starting with the commentariat, as I call them, with the podcasters, but a lot of
Right.
people watch those shows, right? So it's only a matter of time before those huge widening cracks that we see within the podcasters inevitably filters down to the people that watch those shows. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
know we still see the overwhelming support according to whatever polls that Fox News and everybody else wants to put out there about the 100% for the war and all this other shit. And to a large extent, he does have that overwhelming support still, but it's only a fucking matter of time. But does he give a shit? Like, I just feel like he's in this, like, he's almost initiated and is affecting this like neurobufel type of style of governance, which is the Neuro Decree that Hitler put into effect in March of 1945, which is just basically a scorched earth policy to eliminate all of the civilian infrastructure in a place. Like, I just don't think he gives a shit anymore. He doesn't, like, he's not. I don't know if he's sure or unsure about what he's going to do after this term or what he really wants to fucking do. I still don't think he has that set in stone yet. Like, he's got the DOJ, the FBI, the House, the Senate, the SCOTUS. Like, he feels like this invincibility at this point to
Right.
do and say and lie about whatever he wants because he's installed these people in the correct positions. Like, time and time again, I bring up that he didn't learn shit in his first administration, but what he did learn was where he met roadblocks. Right.
Hmm.
And the people that he has to put in place in the correct positions to avoid those roadblocks or accountability or justice, and to make sure that he could do these $10 billion lawsuits against the IRS coming from taxpayer money, to make
Right.
sure that he could, when the military steps up and some people in his cabinet step up and say, hey, this fucking war with Iran is pretty goddamn stupid. You know what I mean? He has the ability and he feels like he has the power to say, I don't care. The Mossad told me it was going to be great, told me it was going to go swimmingly. It'd be done in 10 days. I'd be able to call myself this alpha dictatorial, alpha strongman that I could go down and my legacy would be written. Like, all, I just don't think that he cares about the low polling numbers. I think he cares about, people talking shit about him to a certain extent, but I don't think I think we've completely lost him at this point as far as care for the base. I mean, he's more than willing to call out Tucker Carlson and the rest of these people that again supported him to a point to get him in this position. So I
Right.
I don't know. What say you, you know?
Well, okay, so I think there was a period where he thought he could shrug it off, and it's a habit that he falls back into, like wishful thinking that he does. But there is clearly a compounding interest problem that he has in the polling, and that Republicans have by towing the line for him, and that is different than it was in the first term. And in many ways, again, COVID salvaged his economic failures by creating a
Mhm.
situation where the whole world economy was fucked. So you couldn't notice that he actually drove us into a recession in the fourth year. January 2020, the U.S. before COVID took hold entered a recession over the Christmas holiday and into the beginning of 2020, all the markers were there that we were going to be in a recession, that we were already headed into one. And COVID swept in and was so bad, it was like a snake bite, covered by a shark bite. It masked the impact of it. So he never had a
Right.
comeuppance on that part of it, but he gave him an out. It gave him something to blame, right? And
Even though
I
the snake bite had the venom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, is what ultimately killed his economic,
Mhm.
successes. And I went through this last week because I was like, am I misquoting some of my numbers? I just want to go back and double check a couple of times. Our bailout of COVID, the COVID relief funds, was less than I thought it was, ultimately in direct payments to both businesses and individuals and forgiven grants and all that kind of stuff. It was around $6 trillion. The hole in the economy was 20 trillion. 20 to 22 trillion dollars was lost in revenue, people dying and their businesses collapsing, bankruptcies, all that kind of shit. Lost revenue from businesses while they were shut down, restaurants and business, all that shit, right? we tried to patch a $20 trillion hole with $6 trillion, and we're paying interest on the $6 trillion, which will drive the cost up $175 billion a year in interest forever until we pay that money off, which I don't see us doing in the near term at all. So America, congratulations. We just bought a mega mansion that we can barely afford, and we've got to pay it off over time. It's not doom and
I think they
gloom.
call that in the UK. Sorry, I think they call
Yeah.
that in the UK simple maths.
Yes, right. Maths. Yes, the plurals of math. Never, don't add addition to math, mathematics, as a process. So, and sometimes they say mats if their accent is really heavy,
Yeah.
which sounds, dumbass, whatever. So here's the current, like, I agree with you that most of the time he doesn't give a fuck. Or at least he presents the idea that he doesn't give a fuck. But he sure bitches a lot for somebody who doesn't give a fuck. Like that thing he wrote, I'm sure you saw, of to Candace Owens and Tucker and Alex Jones and all that, was fucking 3 pages long. Like
Mhm.
he's yelling more at them than he is at the Ayatollah. So I
No, and
think
believe me,
he's
like I said, I think he gives a
perception
fuck. He
matters.
definitely
Yeah,
gives a fuck. I just don't think it's about the polling so much or like what the position that he's put in the Republican Party in right now leading into midterms. I think it's more about his
gotcha.
egotistical, sociopathic nature. You know what I mean? Like that's
So
what's drawing him to
he
react
can
in
stand maggots
paragraph.
not
Right.
he can stand maggots not liking him. It's just the elite maggotry he wants the attention and adoration of.
It's
So they've got to
right.
love
It's the
him.
attention that's getting. Right. Right.
Right. And also that, Tucker Carlson should like him and people respect him in in conservative circles or some shit in this fantasy land that Trump lives in. And if those people turn on him, he wants their attention in the same way that, like, he shits all over CNN and MSNBC and NBC and ABC. And yet that's who he would love to be with. He would love to be beloved by CNN. He doesn't give a shit. He's already got Fox, and he doesn't like, it's this "what have you done for me lately," like they're
Yeah.
his side piece now. Like, they're never going to leave. They're his third and fourth sister wife, but he really wants the big prize, which is CNN or 60 Minutes, those kind of things. Um, but apparently Trump is, and this is a quote from and this Axios, but administration officials saying he's over it. He wants it done. He doesn't like Iran holding its control of the strait over the Middle East. He doesn't like them holding this over our heads. He doesn't want to fight anymore, but he will if he feels he has to. Like,
Yeah, again, directly showing that he's backed himself and us into this corner, which there is no off ramp, or there is no good off ramp. There is no off ramp that even resets us to again 8 or 9 weeks ago. I'm
mhm,
losing track at this point when it began, but somewhere in that range. Like there's no clear. Okay, this is the goals that we achieved. Here's our justification. Here's the outright victory that we achieved. No matter what happens now, this enemy Iran that he says he's eliminated the entire Navy, eliminated the entire Air Force, struck 15, 20,000 of this and that. Even
right.
though again the newest reporting suggests that even the U.S. intelligence assessments say that nearly 50% of Iran's drone and missile capabilities still exist, and then
Yep.
with them continuing to dig out further capabilities, they could be up to even as high as 70% of where they were before they started this war. So again, talking about the lies that have been told by this regime, the Donald Trump regime, and like the effectiveness of the U.S. military and how much they've eradicated, Iran's military capabilities. Like we're
Hmm.
seeing the direct reporting from his own intelligence to fly in the face of that. You know what I mean? It's like so
Yeah.
at every single turn, this is nothing but chaotic bullshit,
So.
bluster, market manipulation. Both sides, I say in my show, both sides to a certain extent are
Mhm.
delusional. Like to suggest or to think that like Iran's under no pain, that they're not being affected by this in any way is ridiculous. Not saying that anybody's outright saying that, but again, I think both sides to an extent are delusional to the power that they
Yeah, the
hold in
leadership.
this in
Yeah,
in this
the
situation. Yeah.
yeah the leadership of both places. Like, I said this in the last hour with John. I was like, I've never felt more of a kinship with the Iranian people because we're both being ruled over by arrogant assholes with dreams of ruin the world, and especially now. So all right. I said last week when Trump was like, "We're talking to the people." Yes, go ahead. Go ahead real quick.
No, I was gonna say, but everything that Donald Trump says, all of these genocidal True Social posts, all of this, we are gonna eradicate the
Mhm,
roads, bridges, railways, taking out like that has a way of bringing the people that were once against this regime, right,
mhm,
and may still be to a large extent against this regime on board with maybe dealing with it a little bit more to again to feel that sense of nationalism like okay if they're just going to say they're going to wipe us out entirely if they're going to turn Tehran into
right.
glass and all the shit that this administration said like
Oh, yeah.
okay maybe
It's
I will
nuts.
start to feel something about the people that are seemingly defending me at this point, you know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Well,
that's
the
and
yeah,
it's having the opposite effect that Trump wants to. And again, we learned in World War II, you can't bomb a civilian population into capitulation. You can't bomb a civilian population into like degradation. You can in their lifestyle, but not as far as support for the regime or support for the hierarchy. Like it just intensifies their support. It brings them together, much like it did in
right.
Britain, much like it did in Germany. I mean, we go through all the instances that we can talk about, and it just never had that effect that Vice Marshal Harris wanted it to have, or any of the American leadership wanted it to have, of breaking the backs of the civilian, like their resiliency. You know what I mean? It just never had that impact.
Until the total awful, which is Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because the Imperial Japan and the leadership, the following, the religious-like following of Imperial Japan, of the of the emperor, collapsed after those two attacks, and America had to be part of a rebuilding and with creating almost a new Japan from scratch. And they've been an ally ever since. The worry that I have is that Trump will take that lesson and think that it's somehow easy or predictable that this would go the exact same way, because the
Mhm.
empirical Imperial Japan was based on this kind of illusion of almost a cult like leader, as opposed to tied to I mean, I suppose there was a Shintoism reasoning behind it, but it didn't have the kind of grip that Shia Muslims have, and their relation to an Ayatollah and a leader like that. It was much looser, the world, and it didn't spread through the rest of Asia. There was enough racism between Japan, Korea, and China amongst themselves to isolate that, where that would not be the case with Shia Muslims of all stripes in North Africa and in Lebanon and in other places. So that there's I think he's going to take the wrong lesson from that, and that's I think everybody's nuclear concern in this. What I said last week when they were talking about, I kept saying over and over when they were doing the we're negotiating with the top people and the best people, and we're talking to and I was like, who, fucking who, and like and who says that they spoke for the Iranian people then, or do now, or aren't
Right.
brand new, and therefore the IRGC is just checking to see if they like what they come back with, and if they don't, next, right? So who the fuck are you negotiating with?
Right.
So the one of the big things that came up was I was like Vahidi, the IRGC general guy. I was like, this is kind of who's running shit right now. Because in a war situation in a country like that, where the leadership is brand new or has been folded up, and the illusion of democracy that they do have underneath it, the presidency, the parliament, was Galabaf, is the guy who's been kind of the spokesperson overall. He's
Mhm.
now reporting to Vahidi. Like, and it's obvious, even in an extreme wartime, the entire country is being attacked, and the leadership has been killed. Therefore, the military, it was almost an accidental military coup that was going to happen in these situations.
Well,
Even if it was,
it's widely reported that the Mojtaba is much more closely aligned and affiliated with the IRGC. So possibly while he's dealing with whatever supposed injuries or being
Mhm,
sidelined to whatever extent, or not wanting to venture out into public or make his
yeah,
location known for whatever reason. I mean, it stands to reason that he would with his close ties and affiliation to the IRGC, probably delegate some of the responsibilities, if not most of the military responsibilities, considering that's the main aspect of this is how they can control, the military aspects, or how they can at least feint that they have control over the military
right.
aspects around the strait and stuff like that. So, it stands to reason that, But again, that just shows us the more hardline situation that we're in, the less you can't predict. It's unpredictable. You know what I mean? It was a little bit
Mhm.
more predictable, at least with the last leadership. As erratic and as genocidal and as murderous as they were, and as much as they love to work with Putin and Russia and to help them in their fight against Ukraine, like, it was a lot more predictable. They were at least engaged
Right.
in some sort of talks as we were affecting this war, as we started kicking off this war. So again, by every metric, we are worse off, whether it's
Yeah.
geopolitically, whether it's the amount of power, leverage, and control that Iran has been afforded in this geographical area over the Strait of Hormuz. We've heard more and more about the Bab el Mandeb Strait, which I brought up on the show I think, a month and a half ago at this point, right? So
Mhm.
something that has been talked about, consistently talked about, hasn't really come to fruition yet. But if it does, I mean, we're talking about, a substantial jump in not only the cost of what you're paying for goods because of the 12% of global shipping that happens to pass through the Red Sea and pass through that strait, but also added on to the control and the pressure put upon us and the world because of the control over the Strait of Hormuz. So again, this
Mhm.
has ample opportunity to get much worse and to escalate much more than we've seen so far. Again, we've heard Israel already recalculating their target packages for strikes inside of Iran. We've heard reporting from the United States and clear-cut rhetoric from Pete Hegseth and Trump that they're locked and loaded. They're loading up with the best fucking weapons. So I mean, again, you don't put on a condom unless you're going to screw. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
like you got to look at what's happening on the ground, what both sides are saying, and then somewhere in the middle is probably the truth. And that's kind of what we're relegated to do now. You have to take all the information that's being said on both sides, look at it, and then be like, okay, what the fuck is actually happening? you know?
I would like to say that your remark about you don't put on a condom unless you're ready to screw. There is one instance that I can think of when you're in a swamp or a lake and you're concerned about a particular type of leech.
What is that? The
Um,
pure coup?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Or put it over your rifle. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
guess, but I
exactly.
know
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
mean.
Both. Yeah. One is for fighting. One is the other's for fun. Anyways, the reason I bring this up, and everybody will attest to this, last week I was like, who the fuck do you guys think you're talking to? And who the fuck thinks they're going back and what you ask them to do or insist that they do is going to be accepted by the people who never left the fucking country and traveled to Islamabad, right? These people are dug in. Um, and I brought up Vahidi last week. People can go back and check it. And I was like, this is what's currently happening? Well, Axios is now reporting. U.S. officials have said within hours of Araghchi pronouncing the Strait open, the Islamic Republic Revolutionary Guard Corps fired on tankers trying to cross it, citing Trump's unwillingness to lift his own blockade. U.S. officials saw that as evidence of a divide between Speaker of Parliament Mohammed Bagher Ghalibaf and IRGC Commander Ahmad Vahidi. We thought we thought they were negotiating with the right people. They had reached the cocktail of what they had agreed to, what would be announced, a senior administration official said. But what happened is the Iranian team went back and the IRGC and those kinds of people said, oh, no, no, you don't speak for us. By the way, senior administration official sounds like Trump or himself with a cleaned up quote. Now they have a real divide over there between these factions, and we're not sure who's going to win it. We hope the team we negotiate with will. We negotiated with will. A second U.S. official told Axios, "We aren't sure who's in charge, and neither do they. And neither do they. That's going to have to work itself out." I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? Something's going to be signed this afternoon.
Well, again, we couldn't even get who our delegates were going to be that we were going to send. I mean, I
Oh
read
yeah,
on the show yesterday at least 15 different reports that said JD Vance was going. Steve Witkoff says he's going.
right.
Donald Trump says he's not going. Mike Waltz says he's going. Donald Trump says he's not going. I mean, it was back and forth at least 10 times that I read. So we can't even get who we're going to send there. We can't even get the delegates right. I mean, that's kind of the lowest fucking hanging fruit is like, okay,
Right.
who at least are you going to send? You know what I mean? Can we at least get that fucking right? And I
Well,
thought
and
I
it's a
saw that.
long fucking flight too.
I
Like
thought I
they've got
saw that Vance is supposed to leave for Washington. It says Vance is now expected to leave leave Washington for Pakistan on Tuesday tomorrow for Iran talks. U.S. officials to the New York Times. So obviously nothing tonight, right? So
right. And also
if they're if they're planning
that's
for something to be signed tonight, I guess they have a little more waiting to do.
and again, who the fuck are they negotiating with? About over what? and the ceasefire ends Wednesday.
Right. Right. That the whole thing is crazy. And again, what about the war powers resolution? Like we're steadily creeping up on that 60-day window that the president has, where he's supposed to go back to Congress, and if Congress doesn't again continuously approve or authorize the military action, then the troops are supposed to be withdrawn. Right. I know he gets that 30-day window, or 30-day, but I think that's in fact if they do initiate the withdrawal, they have time to set that up and to make planning and stuff like that. I don't think he just gets to play with that extra 30 days. But I don't hear a ton of people in Congress yelling and screaming about this. Again, there should be a ticker on the side of fucking CNN and MSNBC. This is the amount of days that the war's been going on. This is how much time he gets. Like
Mhm.
he's already gone around Congress to affect this. We already heard from James Comer the other day talking about how we're at this this existential war with Iran. So clearly we're at war. These people have not they have not changed their rhetoric, even though they tried desperately to do so at the beginning of this and not say war and to not, to call it a special military operation straight out of Putin's playbook. But again,
Right.
they just can't help themselves. They
Yeah.
love war so much. They love the bloodshed. They love the fact that they get to wield the military as this political weapon that they need to call them warriors and they need to call it war and they need to make sure that people know exactly what's going on, but that brings different legal ramifications. Like that brings different policies in place that we need to follow. So again, are we just going to ignore all of this and allow him to continue this, or are we going to go by the book and actually bring the power back to Congress? I don't know.
Okay. So there is it won't matter. My concern is in this situation is that if he's rushed in this, then he's gonna the chances of him using a tactical nuke on the weapon sites to go, nobody can go near that ground for 10,000 years. We didn't bomb the cities, we bombed the nuke sites, and there was already nuclear dust there anyways, so we nuked their nuke dust. Because he's running out of time is a real possibility. I don't want to give these assholes any ideas, but that's a real possibility that but I also think it's just as real that they just blow off the fucking timeline and wait for somebody to file something. It'll be a Democrat. There won't be enough votes to push it through. Mike Johnson will call fucking recess or never let it get to the floor. And they'll just keep punting, hoping that Trump magically pulls this fucking diving plane out at the last second.
Well, one, I don't think nukes are ever going to come into play. That's just my opinion. No matter
Hmm.
what the fuck happens, I don't think anybody. I think there's people that would absolutely, or at least I'm hoping there'd be people that stand up. But I don't even think that's even coming into consideration. I don't see what benefit would happen. I know you could say you can't go near there, but again, there's a lot more that would have to come with that and would come after that as well. But
Right.
I don't know. I have trouble kind of buying the fact that Trump, like in any way, shape, or form, is going to. I don't know. It's just the whole thing is just so it's impossible to come out of this with some like rational thought and to try to put the pieces together of the puzzle to have like some clear picture because it's just I don't think nukes would ever come into play.
Dude, I've been
I don't
saying
know.
just because
It's
it's
tough.
stupid doesn't mean it's not the plan. And Donald Trump wants to go down in history as the toughest fucking president ever. And the guy who would finish the fights nobody else wanted to pick. And he went into Iran and he kidnapped their leader and the guy's wife. He's, and he's basically working with the same administration on his fucking, oil and crypto venture shit that he's doing with Don and Eric. Cuba will be a part of that as well, like the end. If he can see himself like killing the Ayatollah and ending the Castro regime, he thinks there's like 20%, the peanut crowd will just guarantee a cush existence and him written down as the greatest president in history for the rest of his life, even if it isn't, even if they can't.
I just don't think the power that we do or don't hold in government should have any control over the fucking politicians' voice boxes, right? I mean, whether or not we have the amount of numbers to effectuate this change or to
Hmm.
effectuate whatever policies is I think irrelevant in my case. They should be out there screaming and yelling about it, letting the American people know about it, educating people on what the fucking policies and the laws that we have in this country are. And I'm not ready to give those laws and policies up in the way that we're actually supposed to go about doing things because we're afraid of how erratic and crazy Donald Trump is. Because that's another one of his ploys, is to make people think that he's doing this and he's so erratic and that you can't
Right.
control him and you can't contain him. I'm not buying it as far as like, okay, we have to make sure, don't worry about what the Constitution says. Don't worry about congressional powers, because if we rush him, maybe he's going to hit the fucking nuke button.
No,
I'm
I'm
not
not
ready
saying do,
to
that.
let
That would
him
be. I
have
would
that
say
much
curtail
power.
your behavior. I wouldn't say curtail. Congress should curtail their behavior. I'm just saying, as a concerned citizen, that's what comes to my head. If I was in Congress, I would be doing exactly what you're talking about, which was every day showing up like
Right.
26 days till this asshole has to ask us. 27 days. They
Mm.
still haven't had a committee hearing to let us know that we're here. 8 days that we. And when I get to 60,
Yeah, it's like Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30, where she continues to write the numbers on the guy's window. Like, it's been this many days since we found Bin Laden. We haven't done shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
what the fuck are we doing here?
right.
I'd be
So,
doing that, like, all over the place.
So our time, Wednesday our time, the ceasefire ends. That's tomorrow in Iran.
Hmm.
And so Trump called into PBS. Whoops, hold on 1 second. This guy right here. Trump called into PBS and did an interview with them because he's been calling people in the middle of fucking meetings, and they said, "What happens if the ceasefire expires tomorrow evening?" And Trump said, "Then lots of bombs start going off." Is Iran still participating in the talks that will be happening in Islamabad? Will they still be there? I don't know. I mean, they're supposed to be there. We agreed to be there, although they say we didn't. But no, it was set up, and we'll see whether or not it's there. If they're not there, that's fine too. What do you want from the negotiating team in Islamabad? No nuclear weapons. Very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. Well, they don't have one. And again, what, that they only agree to that so that you'll give them charging tolls on the strait. You'll allow the regime to, give money to proxies. Well, all the other shit. We'll throw that out the window. As long as they don't have a nuke, they can do anything they fucking want, which is just garbage. Obviously, this is nonsense. Jared Kushner has a lot of business and financial interests in the Middle East region from Saudi Arabia and other countries. Is it appropriate for him to be negotiating there, do you think? Well, he was there before, a long time before, and he's purely negotiating for the fact that they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Whether you have business or not, everybody knows that's the right thing. He's a very good negotiator. You see, no, I mean, we're not negotiating anything other than the fact that they will not have a nuclear weapon, and that's pretty basic when you get right down to it. So, that's it. I sent an A team. I sent my A team. He's done an excellent job. He doesn't participate with Saudi now. As you know, he doesn't do that. He has a business, but he doesn't participate now, which is obviously horseshit. Secretary Wright said that gas may not be lower than $3 until later this year or next year. Is that a concern? I disagree with him totally. I think it'll come roaring down if it ends. If we end it, if Iran does what they should do, it will come roaring down. Like, it's fucking gibberish.
It's gonna break the roof going down.
Yeah, exactly. It'll come roaring back to zero.
But really, I mean, I just think that no matter what happens here, Iran's going to be stronger geopolitically. Like, no matter what happens, Donald Trump, this is going to look like the 38 Munich agreement. Like, Donald Trump or JD Vance is going to come back waving some fucking white piece of paper with the Iranians' fucking signature on it. And it's just going to afford them, again, like you said, either the tolls to charge through the strait. We're going to have to take the affected routes that they say we're going to have to take as far as the shipping, right? The $20
Yep.
billion that was reported from the frozen assets, possibly being another kind of sticking point, another talking point to kind of entice them to go along with signing some sort of deal. Like, this whole thing, there's no way for us to come out of this looking victorious or looking like this was worth it. I mean, not only the money spent, but also the lives lost. Also, I mean, not only in the U.S. military, but all over the Middle East that have paid the price because of this and continue to do so in different areas. Like, there's no possible way to look like you're not just appeasing this regime now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, shit, we fucked up. We didn't recognize we either didn't recognize or didn't prepare for the power that you guys actually fucking had, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of the Navy, regardless of your Air Force. Like, we thought that these old ships, if we took those out, that was going to be awesome. They could give a fuck less. They didn't need those motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Take the ships, take the planes. Guess what? We got the strait. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's no way for the United States to come out of this without looking like this is just straight up appeasement, saying that we fucked up, right hand up, and like, what can we do to fix the situation that we created? That wasn't a problem before we created the situation.
Well,
You
that's
know?
why I don't think he can actually do that. Because that means a total collapse of everything that he has said and done. That is him being called on the carpet for this all being bullshit from the start. And I just don't see the level of maturity necessary to to regard it that way. Go, okay, well, you know what? The Iran war was too much, and we got to back off. We're gonna work out something with them, and like it's like Putin doing that with fucking Ukraine. I just don't see it. Like there are no mature voices in that whole fucking cabinet, and Pete Hegseth can't wait to get his trigger off again, and neither can Trump at this point. Like there's a certain point where they're just doing this to save face amongst their buddies, much less giving a shit what the electorate thinks. So I don't see this kind of like backing out to some version of normalcy being possible.
No, they've kind of, like I said, backed themselves into a corner where kind of pushing forward and plowing ahead is their only kind of course of action, is trying to, affect this again of, complete and total victory, this
Right.
complete capitulation of the entire country of Iran. Like I did, like that's
There's
kind of
no
the
way
the, the
they've got
course
to
that
give.
they've put
They
themselves
would
on.
they would have to we I mean literally to get the kind of agreement he's talking about. We'd have to give them all their frozen assets, which is somewhere in the order of like
Mhm.
$220 billion. So you think Donald Trump's going to acquiesce to giving $220 billion to Iran when he shit all over Obama for giving 1.8 billion in cash of, by the way, funds that were Iran's from oil sales to Iraq that were sitting in a bank there. They
Right.
weren't flown from the United States. They were flown from Iraq to Iran. And it would entail him minimum giving 20 billion, and in total, which is Iran's apparently another red line. They say they won't go be, because they're going to need $200 billion to rebuild after all this happened. The idea that they're not going to have long range or medium range weapons in the face of like an expansionist militaristic leadership in Israel right now is for their own self-defense is just fucking dumb tactically, strategically. I
Right.
mean, what you're even if you, no matter how you feel about them, and I don't like them at all, you're still asking them to pants themselves and turn around and spread their cheeks, right? There's no
And
way.
yeah. And I've seen nothing where they've even suggested the possibility of giving up their enriched uranium. Like I've seen
They
nothing
call
where
it
it's being
sacred.
like thrown. Right, that's what I mean. So it's like this whole fake deal that, even if they were to somehow get this, like that wouldn't remove, and again, depending on what the deal stated, but that wouldn't remove their knowledge or ability. And again, if they had the power to rebuild their entire program after it was annihilated in fucking in 6 months, then what's to stop them, even if they did give up their enriched uranium for in so many years, having the knowledge, the manpower, and the know-how to continue to do that. You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing is nonsensical.
Yeah.
The deeper you dive into what they're trying to say, and again, I don't put it past them for just lying about it too. You know what I mean? Giving them the money, giving them their frozen assets, and lying about what it was from, lying about what it was about. You know what I mean? We will know, but to what extent their base would give a shit or buy that. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know
Well,
at this
okay.
point. I
Friday,
just
if
they're
Friday
going to
said
try.
he
They have to lie about this somehow to come out of this with any victory. It's going to
right.
have to be a lie.
Friday, you got some indication of how ready maggots are to just like jump on board with this being
Right.
over and putting it in the rearview mirror and focusing on the midterms. And it might have worked if he did this closer to when they were actually going to end it. If he'd been telling even marginally the truth that they were close to a deal and whatever, but he just made it the fuck up. Like you couldn't ask someone in the State Department to list who we're negotiating with. Like you couldn't they couldn't tell you. So the idea that we're close to a fucking deal, and never mind the fact that the motherfucker tore up the last one. So who's going to make a deal with that guy?
No, I mean that's the whole thing. Not only that did they tear up the last one, but again, during active negotiations and talks, this is when we engaged this war. This is when we
Yeah,
started this war to begin
both
with. So there's
times.
just it's time after time, example after example of why Donald Trump and this regime should not be trusted, why the Iranians are rightfully skeptical and rightfully are demanding that the United States jump when they say jump. And Donald Trump has said how high every single time, whether it was trying to curtail his rabid dog over there and Bibi Netanyahu, to make sure that the Iranians would even come to the table the first time, because that's what they stipulated. If the Israel Lebanon isn't part of this, then we're not coming to the talk. So Donald Trump had to go on his Truth Social, announce it before the Israeli Security Council could vote on it, so that he could, look like the strong guy, and so that, Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't ruin his chances to have whatever these talks were supposed to come to. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is ridiculous. We're playing like this, scrambling behind the scenes at every turn. And again, like you said, the people and they're just like the maniacal, just their overwhelmingly militaristic style of like Pete Hegseth and the rest of these people who, again, you said, is just itching with his finger on the trigger, ready to resume, strikes inside of Iran and to sink more ships. I mean, the rhetoric alone has told us enough about their sick, disgusting fucking nature.
Right. Trump. So the this is from Drop Site News. Trump's erratic behavior may tank negotiations. Iran says, warning of significantly greater costs to the U.S. if the war resumes, which is bluster from their part. But the important part of this is he told Drop Site that if Trump starts bombing again, Iran will cut off all diplomatic channels and focus on fighting. They're just gonna dunk on him with Lego fucking videos and just fight. There aren't going to be any more negotiations. But here's the thing. Again, you don't even have to side with the regime in Iran to recognize tactically and strategically. This makes no fucking sense to negotiate with Trump and believe that he'll keep his word. He tore up the last one that you had with another president. Who the fuck thinks he's going to keep his word on this one? I mean, it could just be literally like you're basically arguing like, don't worry about it. Look, all I'm asking, put this pillowcase over your head. I promise I won't punch you in the face like last time. That's what you're asking him to do. It's
And it's like the Iranians at some point could be just showing up to these talks, doing kind of like the same thing that the United States was doing, just kind of stringing them along. Meanwhile, they're
yeah,
digging up more fucking the launch sites. They're digging up more missiles. They're digging up, they're building more, whatever they did. They're getting stronger in the background to whatever extent that Donald Trump said that they were militarily defeated, right? Meanwhile, they're like, yeah, we'll continue to show up. Don't worry about it. Don't, you know what I mean? We'll be, another two
yeah,
weeks, do another 2 weeks. Meanwhile,
yeah.
we're digging up missiles every single day. And then one day they're just going to say, fuck it. And they're going to start striking basically all the ships that they possibly can in the strait. Next thing you
Right.
know, we're going to have a really serious situation on our hands, way above and beyond what we're seeing now. They're going to activate the Houthis. The Bab el Mandeb's going to be shut down. Next thing you know, the fucking global shipping is in a tailspin,
Hmm.
even above and beyond where it is now. That's going to filter down to you and I as far as costs. And that's ultimately who pays the price in this. And I like to remind people as like as much of a crunch we're under here in the U.S. as far as the up and down, the oil prices up and down, and pretty much the consistent increase in gas prices, clothes, shoes, fucking goods at the store, whatever it may be, anything that comes by plane, train, automobile is costing more because of what's taking place right now. But the Asian markets and the European markets, the fact that jet fuel is set to run
Africa,
out if something isn't
South
figured out
America.
is like,
Right.
just goes to show you that like this is affecting a lot more people above and beyond just us here in the United States, and that to a large extent more than it's affecting us here in the United
Hmm.
States. So a
Well, and
lot
that's
of people's lives are at risk. A lot of ways of life are at risk here. As hyperbolic as it sounds to say, it's really not. When you're talking about hitting the fresh water supply of the Middle East, I mean, we're talking not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like you're talking about millions and millions of people that could be put at risk by that. You know what I mean?
right, right. Well, and this applies to I, like Trump's whole like tariff attacks, primarily last year. If watched in context, it looks very much like if we get a historical distance from this 10 years from now, that this is a PNAC Heritage Foundation Project 2025 plan to scoop in a bunch of money, war chest the United States, put a wall up around our economy so that it's less affected than other countries, and then set off something that wrecks their economy so we're the only big boy in town. Like that, very and it's like imperialism via vacuum, that you don't have to, it doesn't even have to be adventurous imperialism. You can literally just tear down other countries or let them, fall apart under the weight of their own connectivity that you've run interference for. You cut off arteries, and those arteries instead, you don't own those countries outright like you would if you invaded them, but they've got to come to you if they want anything in the future that and therefore, Trump has leverage with his tariffs. This sounds like shit Besant and Soros did with the fucking British pound. You know,
And it's done incompetently. Like they can't even do that right. You
right,
know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah. That's what like Fugelsang was talking about how selfish they are. I was like, they can't even do selfish right. Like I'm amazed at this part of it. So, the according to them, okay, here this is the while the official said Iran prefers to make a comprehensive deal with the U.S. that would address nuclear enrichment, offer sanctions relief, and establish a long-term non-aggression framework. Tehran believes the window for an agreement is rapidly closing as a result of maximalist U.S. demands and Trump's erratic behavior. Our assessment is that Trump effectively lacks both a coherent plan and the capacity to secure even a temporary agreement, which is also where we are with them, because there's no reason to believe that the people who bring this agreement back to the IRGC leaders that they'll sign off on it. The official said his decision making appears to be grounded in Israeli political and security assessments conveyed to him on a daily basis. I would argue MBS and the Qataris and like the UAE also should be into that because he's also dancing to their jig as well. The senior official has direct access to Tehran's internal deliberations. He requested anonymity because he's not supposed to talk about it, whether that's true or not, or whatever. Um, there hasn't been any real progress on the positions of both respective sides. Both sides are just signaling behind the scenes that they're open to reaching an agreement. Well, obviously not if you're not making any real progress and you've got literally directly conflicting um, points of interest.
And
Yeah.
within minutes of what Trump announces, you know what I mean? Like we're
Yes.
talking about, like, I think it was less than 3 hours after I ended the show the other day on Friday. After we
Hmm.
called out, we went through everything that Donald Trump had posted, and then we went directly to what the Iranian officials were saying and the spokespeople were saying, and it was
Hmm.
like not one of these things lines up.
Yeah.
Not a single thing that he said am I saying he am I seeing here. Not a single thing that they said is being am I reading in what he's saying. Like not like what the hell, like how could you possibly be that far off? And that was clearly an effort to manipulate the markets to say,
Yeah.
hey, you throw in your money now, I'll say this, the markets will react in this type of way, and next thing you know, you're taking your billions of dollars out, and we could do this thing all over again. Going back to the tariffs, he did it with the tariffs as well. The tariffs are on, the tariffs are off, the
Yep.
market would react, and then people would either short it or they'd invest in whatever the hell that they thought would go up during one of his other announcements. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's like, it's clearly the fact that he has not only no rhyme or reason for what he's doing in this war, he has no understanding of why he got into it. Again, I truly believe that this guy is just the most moronic person in the world, and he was straight up led by the nose into this, and he was fed all the lines of propaganda and bullshit. Ultimately, it's his responsibility to say yes or no to that, so it doesn't
Hmm.
absolve him of any responsibility or
Right.
accountability for this whatsoever. But the fact that he was in there and saying, well, it sounds like everything's going to go 100 for 100, because nothing ever goes wrong militarily. Everybody knows
Right.
that the best laid plans militarily always stay in place as soon as the first shot's fired, and that's not how the saying goes. I'm being facetious in case anybody in the chat
Yes.
didn't catch on to that one. But it's like he has no clear cut understanding, so he can't make an accurate assessment about what to do next, which
Yeah.
is inevitably leading us into a more chaotic and unstable situation. You know what I mean? Like somebody that would have to have a clear understanding of, hey, if we do this, they have the ability to retaliate against the strait. We should probably do something, put some plans in place to mitigate that retaliation, right? They had nothing. That was not in place. They didn't think it was going to be possible. They weren't going to hit the US bases. They weren't going to hit Qatar. They weren't going to hit UAE. They weren't going to hit Bahrain. That's
Right.
what was told to him, and that's what he believed. Unfortunately, all of that was fucking incredibly false and stupid and could have been told you by any wargaming that anybody has ever done. You know what I mean? Me and you could have done a war game and we'd be like, okay, Hal, what would your next move here? You know what I mean? If I did this, what would your next move be? And you'd say, okay, look at that geographical position in which so much of the fucking oil flows through. You know what I mean? Let's maybe think if we could do something with that. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't take a
My,
military genius to be
I'm
like, that's
very,
probably something you want to mitigate against.
and it's not just because I was named after a computer, but I think my response would be interesting game, Professor Falcon. The only way to win is not to play. Um, but what Trump doesn't realize is that by calling every president before him weak and stupid, um, and saying I'm doing what they didn't have the guts or that they should have done. He, it puts him into a box where he can never recognize. Oh, this is not a. The reason they didn't do it is not because they're weak or stupid. It's quite the opposite. Is that it requires a lot of strength to not become a genocidal psychopath. To paraphrase Chris Rock, um, peace has to fly to something that war can just walk to. And there is, a situation here where if the default is erratic and untrustworthy and in a negotiation about a peace deal, the default is war and very quickly because one side or the other is coming for the end of this. And in the case of Trump, because of his bluster about destroying the entire civilization, the regime has to know that he's not going to worry about regime change issues anymore, right? He's not, if he threatened to kill all the civilians, you think he's going to back down from doing a full on regime change war with boots on the ground and shit like that? Hey, I'm not there to
Right.
kill all the
Right.
civilians. I'm just sending troops in to eradicate the IRGC leadership. Or, because that's the next place. Like, I don't think they're going to bomb the bridges. I do think they're going to bomb the electrical facilities and bridges that reach areas where the bombs and missiles might be hidden, like militarily strategic ones, not everyone in the country, like he says, because he doesn't know anything. But I do think there is a chance that they will bomb every IRGC related facility in the entire country. Every police station, every, anything that's for like putting down the civilian population that they may have avoided just because, if you do that, crime runs rampant in the streets and, the public might hate you for that. But since the IRGC is the new regime change means no more IRGC. So I think that's what they're going to call this off and bomb a bunch of other places just to show them they mean business. And they're probably going to sink a tanker or two. They're going to, we fired the first shot at a ship, at a peaceful ship that stopped it anyways. The Iranians hit a few that caused fires on board, but we actually
Mhm.
disabled one by blowing up its engine. We told everybody to move out of the engine room and then disabled the ship and took it over. Um, that's the
Yeah, I
first.
love that they brag about that. They brag about one ship, one oil tanker being taken over. Meanwhile, the other was 2 weeks ago. Donald Trump said that the people he was negotiating with had sent him 20. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like,
What?
is this a big victory? Again, you said the other day that you got 20. Again, nobody really knows what the
Oh,
fuck came
by
from
the
that, but
well, I'll tell you what it was. It was Pakistani flagged ships that were going to
right,
China.
right.
So that's why we're having these talks in fucking Islamabad, because that wasn't a favor, from the Iranians to Donald Trump. That was a favor to the Pakistanis
Right.
from Trump letting those get through. It's just, and again, just because it's stupid doesn't mean it's not the plan. Um, Boston Brian has a fantastic show, by the way. You should subscribe to it immediately if you haven't already. Give him a thumbs up. He's got a Patreon as well. Is it patreon.com/Boston Brian?
You got it, brother. Right
Yep.
on.
And
I appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate you. It's been, one of the great joys of the last couple of years, getting to know you and being able to, get together with you at a couple of events and that kind of thing. It's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate your voice and I appreciate what you have to say out there, and I'm glad you're doing it on the regular. So just had to put that
Well,
my
the feeling is overwhelmingly mutual, my friend. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting the chance to meet you and talk politics, and get these shows together every now and again, and to meet the
Mhm.
sparklers, and to meet you personally, to get to know you and the type of guy you are and your intelligence. It's been a real joy to me as well. So again,
I appreciate it.
much love to you and Summer and everybody else that's
Thank you, brother.
involved in your family, because for putting up with us here as the guest on the show. So thank you for giving us the time. I appreciate, again, I'm serious. So thank you for again, as you always say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think
Uh,
you stick to that, which is something that I really respect a whole fucking lot. I also love the fact that you have built this community here of people that not only support you so much, but are so willing to support other communities as well. So
yep,
I'm very flattered every time that I see CSL pop in with all of the other sparklers to come say hi after you guys finish off a show. So I really do appreciate it. We're slowly getting to 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're hoping to get there by the
yep,
time midterms rolls around so we could be, I always say, so we can have the most weight thrown behind my punches. I want to really ruffle some feathers. I want to be
yep.
kicking up some dust. I want people to notice what I'm saying and to take note, to take notice of the community that we're building. So it's only with your help and generosity that I'm
That's
going to be
right.
able to get this. So I really do appreciate you and your community. You're both fantastic, and I love you both bunches.
Yeah, and huzzah to the lobsters, which is your crowd.
Yeah. a little take. We got the Bryantologists on. Well, we had to do something, and we had to mock Trump's cult in some way. So I
Sure.
like to call my house the house and the church of Bryantology, and all my
Hmm.
fans the Bryantologists. So, but again, that's just a play
Well,
on the
it's why
cult
I'm
of
working
Donald
on
Trump.
the that's why I'm working on the Sparksist Megafesto. So we're
Well, I
almost at
appreciate you, brother.
90.
Thank you
We're
so
almost
much
at
for your time.
Yeah, we're almost at 90,000. If you like the show and you like Buzz Brian, you like the guests I have on or whatever, hit subscribe. I have like my watch time and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure you experience some of this as well. My watch time and my regular viewer numbers are very high. Like I have, my average stream watch is 45 minutes or longer, and that's like all the big guys, the Tim Dillons of the world and all this stuff who have like millions of subscribers, they're at like 20 to 15 minutes, and
Right, right.
I think that should count for something. So hit
I
the
think we're
like,
doing
share the show.
ourselves a little bit of a disservice, if I may just pop in
Hmm.
and interject for a second with the amount of live streams that we do. I really think that a lot more people are heavily focused on the 5 to say 20 minute edited videos on a certain subject,
True.
whereas we try to jam in as much information as we possibly can into the 2 hours, 2.5 hours we may be on. And it's just a lot of people don't have that attention span. They don't
Well,
have that the
apparently mine
ability, or
do
they
though.
may just
That's the point. Mine do. Like they're in for
right, right,
45 minutes almost of every stream. That's kind of incredible. And and the Destinies of the world and Hassan and others, they're on all fucking day. So
right.
like hours and hours and hours. I mean, granted, a lot of Hassan show is like him electrocuting his dog or leaving the room while someone else's fucking video plays and poaching other people's content, like the dirtbag that he is. Who is has the same feelings about the age of consent that Alan Dershowitz has. Um,
I,
for
I
the
think we could have a good conversation on this as well, because I'm not
Oh,
totally in
indeed.
that camp. I obviously don't agree with anything,
Hmm.
everything that anyone says, and I could
Sure.
absolutely spend some time rightly calling out some shit that has pissed me off. But I think to a large extent, there's more benefit there than there is waste, if I will put it that way.
I agree, but I think it's the creation of a cul-de-sac that never goes anywhere because he doesn't drive voters. He drives them away from the voting booth the same way TYT does.
Well,
Like it's
how can you say that with the reaction that he gets on college campuses, though? You know what I mean? And I know that's just one aspect that we could pull
because
at, but I mean, these people that are actively and seem really knowledgeable about the facts doesn't show somebody that wouldn't get out and vote, somebody that speaks up at the events, talks to him, goes out to
yeah,
see Abdul Al Sayed
statistically,
and all these other people.
nope. Statistically, they don't. They just don't. They
Well,
start
the
showing
younger
up.
generation
y-
statistically are the least likely to show
Right,
up to vote,
but
yes.
even
But as
even
far
that
as the
group.
ones that Hassan is affecting, I don't think we have any clear data to suggest that that's not having an effect either. You know what I mean?
Also, it's hard to say whether he's actually affecting them, but by and large, he's in the same park of like nobody's good enough, so it always mutes the vote no matter what. It will always mute it more than it grows
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
Period.
I
And
believe me,
so,
like I said, I could absolutely call out some of his, everybody's the kind of same type of rhetoric, and both sides are just as
right,
equally as bad bullshit. Absolutely, call out a lot of the statements that he made. There's also, like you just said, You brought up yourself. He's on 8 hours a day. Like I'm only on 2 hours, and I've
Hmm.
definitely not only misspoke, said some dumb shit, pissed some fucking people off. You know what I
Right.
mean? Said some maybe not above board stuff. So again, to a large extent, a lot of these kind of popular clips that people would point to, I
Hmm.
think you'd probably get a different aspect if you go back and look at the overall argument or the overall clip. And again, he benefits too from a lot of clips, like I was talking about the short. Like he's got a lot of other accounts
Yep.
that are built off of him that just clip his show. You know what I mean? So that helps his
Well, he also
numbers as well. So a lot of
he
people
also
do like that 5 to 10 minute
yeah,
edited kind
no,
of
no, no question. I mean, that's
short. Right, right.
Joe Rogan does the exact same thing
Yeah,
mechanically.
right, right.
There's JRE clips, and then there's a bunch of other clipping things, and there's even this big movement of paying clippers out there in third world countries, which a lot of them do, including Hassan, including Destiny, and others, to feed those things out, and they get paid by the 100,000 views, and all these things in manufactured cul-de-sacs where the shit never reaches anybody. But my issue overall is that anybody who's becoming a focused viewer of those guys in particular ends up not voting or being like those you could materially trace the entirety of his streams in the last election to people not voting and a diminished vote for Harris, clear as day.
Which is why I think it's more important to go on those places and have conversations.
Oh
Like, I
no,
think
I'll
it's hard
argue
for
with
me to
any of them.
suggest that I'm
No, no, no.
having an impact, and if with the amount of people that watch my stream, and to suggest that the
Hmm.
50 or 60,000 concurrent viewers that he has watching his, that he can't have an impact. And I just think it's ridiculous that the Democrats or anybody would say, let's excommunicate this as a platform to go on and try to get our ideas to people that are obviously involved in some way, shape, or form, right? I mean, well, how
Oh yeah.
involved they
Well,
are,
he
but
does.
to get your
Yeah, the
ass out of
vast.
a college dorm room and into a fucking into a meeting, or into
Sure.
some into a rally or whatever the fuck, like that's affecting change right there. Like that's step one at least. And
I
then if we
agree,
could
but he
get
doesn't.
the
We're not
correct
talking about
ideas,
somebody
correct
like
policies in
Pierce
place.
Morgan or somebody who interviews people, or even Rogan. In the case of Hassan, he's just playing videos by and large. He doesn't, his isn't an interview structure most of the time. So like it's not like that's the
But I
standard
think he
fare
would
for.
cop to that, though. I don't think he would go out there and portray himself as some fucking, journalistic interviewer that gets out and, breaks these stories or anything like that. I mean, he's kind of, in my opinion, I think he's very down to earth and kind of like, explains very well, or portrays himself very well as what he is. He calls himself a clown a lot. He calls himself an idiot a lot. He says dumb shit a lot. But obviously, he's got
I
some intelligence in there, and a lot of what he does say and what he wants to see happen, I would get behind. And again, I would also have the same conversations that you would
you
probably
would
have about some of the stupid shit
You
that he
wouldn't
said.
even right.
And
You wouldn't even be having a conversation like TYT being part of a conversation if they didn't sell 60% of the time to the group that we're talking to. It's the other 40% of the time that is beyond just like fuck around and misspeak to full on voter suppression. I'm not playing around with this or being hyperbolic about it. That is genuinely the purpose. The same way that Russell Brand is. There is very little space between what Russell Brand and Hassan Piker say in terms of their ethical portrayal of stuff. They just, you know, uh, like Russell Brand, openly carries water for Trump by name, and Hassan writes off all but randos in the Democratic Party, for example. The result is the same. It's a bunch of people checking out and getting high on revolutionary bongs that don't end up voting because no human being will be able to live up to the purity test aspect of it. These are the sheepdogs of the purity testers. And calling yourself an idiot or dumb or saying you've made mistakes is a cop out in those ways because you don't go back and say exactly where you were wrong and that kind of stuff. It becomes generic. It becomes a generic
well, he
placeholder
very
that
much
allows
does,
your
though. He very much does. I mean, he goes back and he explains his positions. He's had multiple shows and streams and videos where he's gone through every single one of the quotes and the things that the mainstream media and people that don't like him would bring up as far as like talking points against him. And he's gone back and shown the clips, and it's like, okay, well, if you actually go back and look at the entirety of what I said, you could clip that part out. But my point was to not only get your attention and to maybe it was hyperbolic, maybe it was over the top. But again, if you go back and look at the overarching segment and what I'm trying to get it across as far as, Medicare for all, or, helping fucking poor people or vets or whatever the fuck, all of the policies that he wants to see in place. And I have no argument to the fact that there's an aspect of nihilism in there, and I think it stems from frustration at seeing the people tell us that they're going to do the right thing, trying to present themselves as being progressive. They're going to go in there and affect change, and then they get in there and they end up fucking bowing down and kissing ass to the establishment, kissing ass to APAC, and then we'd never see that change. And again, I just think it's ridiculous to think that we have politicians going on white nationalist programs, people that have said bigoted, racist, homophobic shit, and to this day still believe those things. Meanwhile, we're going to say, no, let's not sit down with Hassan Piker and try to again speak to. And a lot of these shows, it's not
I don't
about the
know who. Oh
conversation
wait,
between
who
the
are
two
you
people.
specifically?
It's the
Who's
audience.
refusing? Sorry, who's refusing to go on Hassan Piker's show and talk to him in the Democratic?
Slotkin, a bunch of them were already coming out and talking about it. There was a huge hit piece by, what was it, Third World, a third base, a third fucking something that
Third
came out,
wave.
and it was picked up by all the establishment all the establishment Democrats coming out and saying, yeah, that's something that I should never touch. We should never go on that. Meanwhile, you look up the shows that they've been on, and it's a lot of these fucking right wing hacks, right wing podcasts that they have no fucking problem talking. Gavin Newsom got no problem talking to Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool and all these motherfuckers.
Well, you're
But all of
talking.
a sudden,
I
we're
would
not
hold
allowed
on.
to go
I
on
would
to.
argue that they
That's
go
just
on
an
those.
example. He didn't
I
say
know.
that, but
I know that. But what I'm saying is, I think those people are going on to challenge those people directly.
no. They didn't. He didn't go on their show. That's the whole fucking point. I have no problem with Gavin Newsom going on Ben Shapiro's fucking show or Tim
Right.
Pool's show to speak to their audience. But the second you bring Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool to your audience to let them fucking propagandize and bullshit your fucking audience that already is with you, that already is known, only thing that can happen there is for them
Sorry,
to
did
change
Newsom?
in the
Sorry,
opposite
you
direction.
mean Newsom
It's
bringing those
ridiculous.
people onto his show?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Correct.
And
Not only that, but not, I mean, and again, if you're going to bring them on to disagree and to call them out, that's fucking awesome. I love it. That's exactly what you should be doing, but not to appease and to babysit and to fucking play patty cake and to agree with them the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not where we're going to get ahead in this fucking game. And it's not right to bring that bullshit to your audience, knowing what these people have spewed in the past without directly fucking confronting them on that bullshit.
okay. Well,
But
without
again, it's a great conversation that we could
sure.
have.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much of your time.
That's okay. No, no, no. This is where, yeah, this is worth having specifically because I believe that in the case of like Tim Pool is a permanent fence sitter and a guy who is actually like almost his entire thing is based on not having an opinion while pretending not have an opinion while he
Yeah.
spouts an opinion the entire time. So he speaks to this bullshit incel community that kind of act independent, if that makes sense. There's a bunch of those. I think Alex Jones originally started that, and so you've got like each one of them after Alex Jones's fall have been trying to carve off their little chunk. Tucker being the dweeb Alex Jones, and Russell, Brand being the fucking hippie Alex Jones, and Tim Pool being like the skater kid Alex Jones in his late 40s with no children, but whatever. Right? They're all trying to carve off their little piece of that group. And Ben Shapiro being, I would argue, a true believer in what he believes, so sort of worth arguing with specifically because you're chipping away at a real argument, whereas Tim Pool, you're just dragging audience over from his side to try and hear your piece because they're never going to go there willingly. They're not going to watch the rest of Gavin Newsom's things. And again, I don't know if he's had either of these people on his guests. I'm just speaking in
He
those
has, and
terms,
Steve
right?
Bannon.
Right. And in those particular instances, I don't think anybody in his regular eyes is going to be hypnotized by what these assholes are saying. But the idea is that it for Steve Bannon's crowd or whatever to demonize Gavin Newsom after the conversation becomes increasingly hard. So it has a strategic value that goes beyond allowing Steve Bannon to pour bullshit into people's ears. It's more about Newsom going, like demystifying him and as this democrat to some of the fringe aspect, the light side of the people who watch RAV or some shit like that. This is just me thinking from a strategic media standpoint in this regard and looking fearless because I'll have him on my show. Sure, I'll sit there and listen to you fucking talk, but I'm going to tell you what I think, and that's that. And we'll shake hands. And your dude shook my hand. This is the Macron handshake. done towards the rest of maggotry, right? Is, you know, that Macron shaking Trump's hand, going, and by the way, thanks for the missiles, when he didn't give any missiles, you know, to Ukraine or whatever, and Trump now has to go, oh, you're welcome, and so now missiles are in their hands, like that. There's a strategic public way of pulling people out. There is a huge difference, though, between that single episodes of stuff with that media temp, whether it works or not is the debatable part. And I think that's a big part of this as well. Whether the attempt is worth it, whether they, meanwhile, I don't think Gavin Newsom is bringing on Steve Bannon so that his viewers can finally hear what Steve Bannon has to say. Like that clearly is not what's going on here. So there's
Well,
another
he
media
certainly
strategy.
didn't have him on to call him out. That's for damn sure.
Okay, well, that looks
Because they
differently.
did
If
more agreeing than they did disagreeing,
well,
and
that's
I understand your whole the
again,
media literacy and the look of
yes,
it, but
that's
that's
about
just
the
not
weapon. Is
both. It failed on both sides because Gavin Newsom's crowd hated it, and the fucking people that were following Ben Shapiro or Gavin whatever his fucking name is,
Steve
Steve
Bannon.
Bannon, came in and shit all over Gavin Newsom for being a fucking pussy. So
Right, but
it didn't
that's the
have any
chat room.
effect on either
Again,
side.
hold on. These are the viewerships. I'm talking about the soft voter outside that. You're never going to turn those people that are in the chat room at RAV or the chat room on Newsom's to believe either of these guys. But there is a huge chunk of independents which are shifting this election, shifted it last time, will shift the midterms. Well, you know, all these people who are like in this mushy middle, and those people won't have either watched it or whatever. They're like, oh, I think Newsom had Steve Bannon on or whatever, and they, you know, so Steve Bannon, I guess, doesn't hate him now or whatever. That's what they'll get from it. And those people will go, well, Newsom's obviously not a demon Democrat, whatever. So I feel better about him than I might have before. That's the strategic part of it. The subset of the people like you and I who drink from the fire hose of news are not, it's not going to sit the same way. It just does not enter our eye holes and ear holes the way it does the people who we have to convince that a public option in the ACA is ethical, moral, right, logical, cheaper, right? That seems self-evident. But there's a huge chunk of people who are in this gray zone that, you know, if neither fringe is talking to. And the fringes are what make up most chat rooms. You and I have an exception, I think, because we have a mix match of a lot of people that are, you know, on the, certainly on the liberal side of things, but are all over the spectrum of that thought, and that's healthy. So the point I'm trying to make is that in the Hassan world, in the TYT world, there is, you know, I consider it a wolf in sheep's clothing situation. It would only, we don't, the only reason we're talking about it is because they seem to be on the right side of the issue 60% of the time. When they bring up something like child care and child tax credit or whatever, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's not far enough. We should have, you know, it should all be paid for, whatever. Okay, as a utopian goal, I completely agree. As a possibility in a genuine democracy, it isn't. So where do you go? How far can you get? And their war against incremental progress and their belief that establishment is somehow like the evil, it's their version of the deep state. It's their excuse why shit doesn't get done, instead of going, you have not convinced the rest of these voters that this will work and that you mean well. That's the thing holding back most of the biggest social change aspects of that are legislated of the last 5 decades. There's certainly extremist situations where Trump gets a hold of the House, they vote against a woman's right to choose, which is against the general public. But every Democrat voted against it, but they were fucking outnumbered. Why were they outnumbered? Because assholes like Hassan Piker and the anti-establishment crowd chipped away at our majority regularly for 2 fucking decades, and they're not going to stop. Other than that, I have
Well,
no
to think
opinion.
that the establishment hasn't done anything to be chipped away at because people like fucking Chuck Schumer and everybody else taking the APAC money consistently give us the reason and examples to fight back against the people that are supposedly supposed to be working for our best interest, but absolutely have done fucking nil as far as doing that and don't fucking have any regard whatsoever for listening to the people that are supposed to be representing and what we want and what we don't want to see happen when you continuously fund
Sorry,
fucking
real
Israel with
okay, hold
weapons
on.
and
1 second.
and,
I'll
and
I'll
fucking
I'll stop you
tractors
right
and
there
shit.
because this is important. Because you use nothing and nil, which are total absolutes, right? Zero.
I
That's your
did.
argument.
I
Zero.
did. I
Chuck
did.
Schumer is a senator from the state of New York. What do you think the constituency of New York is in terms of support for Israel?
I
And
don't give a
genuinely,
shit.
well,
Don't give a shit.
you
Don't give a
do.
fuck. Really couldn't give a shit less what he thinks is the reasoning that he's sending weapons continuously to support a genocide. I don't give a fuck if he thinks he's
Hold
doing the
on.
right thing. I don't give a fuck if he thinks his mother and father support it. I don't give a fuck if he thinks his neighborhood supports it. Fuck him and fuck them for supporting it.
Okay. Well, that's the issue though. So you're circumventing the idea of
Exactly. That is the issue.
representative democracy.
Yes, in supporting a genocide, yes, because how many people are out there actually telling Chuck Schumer to continuously send weapons and fucking tractors to move people out of their fucking homeland and to murder people and in the West Bank and in Gaza? How many people are consistently now still
Okay.
telling Chuck Schumer to do that?
A
What's the
lesson.
what's the current what's the current number? Because the support for
I
Israel has
You
fucking
tell
gone through
me.
the shitter,
I
whether
agree.
with whether it's with the GOP, whether it's with the fucking the Democrats as far as a base, or it's the Democratic politicians. It's fallen through the fucking
Hold
cracks
on.
and for
Okay,
good
so
fucking
I'm
reason.
with you.
And it
I'm with
didn't
you.
fall fast enough.
Okay, I understand that. I guess the primary question is, where does that end in representative democracy? Where does that end? At
With
what
people
point
that will
do you
not
have to?
consistently send that shit, will not consistently take money from the people that have no fucking goals, no intentions to support or that benefit the United States people whatsoever. We've given billions and billions and billions. We've seen fucking thousands of people die. And for what in return? For what? What have we gotten in return for our specific
No,
partnership
okay.
and fucking Chuck Schumer and AIPAC's
No, I'm not
benefit
arguing.
to fucking
Okay,
Israel?
okay. I agree with you that I think support for Israel, especially under Netanyahu and during the last 3.5 years, has dropped through the floor, and that the American people, as an electorate, have drifted towards, or by and large drifting towards, lowering our support for Israel militarily and not seeing them as the only democracy in the region with gay rights and a non ethno state government, because there are Arabs in the that are in the parliament there and the like. Has drifted towards it, being expansionist imperialist like party that running Israel against the will of the Israeli people and doing this stuff. I don't disagree with you there. The question I have is that in those situations with the nothing and nil and whatever, the public that votes for these things apparently is not 100% there yet. They're drifting that way, but we haven't had an election between the last one and this one where the numbers have cratered this much. I would argue that since the 2024 election and now, the American people's feelings about defensive support of Israel, offensive support of Israel, and certainly because of this war, has made a major change, meaning that their representatives in the government, if they continue to support this or whatever, are diverging themselves from what the public wants. But you look at the drop in support from the last election to now, it's the worst that it's ever been, right? And therefore, the people that are supplying them with those arms and doing all those kind of things are hearing different things from their constituents in theory. But then the Republicans themselves are still in charge of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. There's no situation where a cut in that funding or whatever that Schumer or any, because we're in the minority. We are in the minority. So that change in how Democrats especially feel about military support of Israel will have zero impact. They have no power, none. And if they did, even if we take the House and the Senate, Trump is still in office, or Vance is still in office, because the American people voted him in last time. And we'll put all of our shenanigans, Elon Musk shit aside. The American people voted him in. The representative leader of our country right now was voted in not because he had a wave of people that was bigger than who voted him in 2016, but because a shit ton of our side sat down because they didn't vote. And they didn't vote for a woman who's brown, who wouldn't meet in private with Netanyahu because genocide Joe. And the idea that Democrats somehow are on the hook for everything Republicans do. And that's the purity test that I'm talking about. And that's the argument that Hassan and TYT makes all the time, that made 6 million people, including 100,000 people who pretended that Donald Trump would be better for the Palestinians after posting Trump Tower Gaza and telling Netanyahu that the West Bank is next and that the Palestinians need to be moved to other countries actively, openly. Did they show up at the DNC and after the DNC had already argued that we shouldn't be supporting this and for calling it a genocide or at least ethnic cleansing. That argument was being had at the DNC. Meanwhile, Trump is meeting in private with Netanyahu, and none of these motherfuckers showed up. Hassan Piker's entire vitriol during that time was all on the DNC. And what happened? America is engaged in right now our first imperialist attack on a country in decades. I mean, we didn't even want to take Vietnam to have it. But Iran's like, we go in, we keep the oil. Basically, I'm running it. I run the Strait. I run Venezuela. I'm basically the president of Venezuela. And everybody acts like it's a fuck around. Hassan acts like it's a fuck around and lays it at fucking Schumer's feet. I'm sorry. I find it immoral. I find it,
But
and it
absolutely none of that
undercuts.
changes any of the support or what Chuck Schumer continues to do, right? And what he does and how he doesn't represent what the fucking people of this country want to see happen and want to see done as far as
They
societally
don't.
and fucking as far as
They
geopolitically.
didn't as of the last election, and what they currently don't. They do not. That's the
But they're
problem.
supposed to he's a Democrat, right? He's supposed to represent the Democratic side.
No, he's a
Like when
senator
he's
from
going
New.
out
No,
no, I
he's
understand that. I understand
still
that
the
he's supposed to
minority.
represent everybody. I understand.
Right, but he's also the minority leader.
Where is it democratic? Where is it democratic to continue supporting this genocide? Where is it democratic to continue its funding from AIPAC? Meanwhile, again, none of it has to benefit the people, whether you're Republican or you're Democratic or you're a Democrat. None of it, none of what he's done there in this specific situation has benefited us. Where was the vote for the war powers? Where was the vote to have people fucking put
He
on
can't
record
bring
where
it.
they stand for this war with Iran? I understand, but the fact that you don't have the power doesn't fucking stop your vocal cords, doesn't stop your voice box, which is why it's not stopping me from calling out the people that are supposed to be representing us on this side, or at least portray themselves as representing us as far as the leadership in this party for doing things that go directly against
Okay.
what the people in this party as
Okay.
leadership, they're the leadership. I understand senator-wise, they represent everybody, but the leadership of this fucking party is not doing what the fucking people want them to do.
Okay. I hear you as far as you want them to be
I don't
louder.
want it to be that way. I don't want to be sitting here calling out fucking. Believe me, I wish we lived in a utopia, and I make no, I make no qualms about it that the fucking Republicans, the GOP, and Donald Trump are by far, far and away the biggest enemy. They're not even comparable, not even remotely comparable of the two sides. I fucking understand that, but if you love something, you have to be able to call it out when you see dead babies on a fucking daily basis. When you continue to see that, and the funding continue to go
Yeah.
for that. Meanwhile, we're fucking being screwed and porked in the ass here in the country, generation after fucking generation, and we're sending billions and billions of dollars, and the people that are supposed to be leading us right now in 2026 don't fucking recognize that. That's a problem, and I will call that out. That's just what I see. Not to suggest that all of their voting or everything that they voted for was against policy or against Democrats or didn't help, but in this instance, the most fucking the biggest factors that we're seeing right now are what we're talking about: the genocide going on, the way that people are struggling mightily all over the world, especially here in the United States, the housing crisis. People can't afford fucking health care, right? Like these are the things, even though you don't
Yeah.
have the power to affect the
Right.
change
And
in the government,
wait,
you
wait,
should be
wait.
out there screaming and yelling your fucking head off
No, no.
every single
Here's
turn for
that. Right.
fucking
I get you.
arrest, for
I get you. But
impeachment, for
here's
him to
my
step
argument.
down, for
This is.
change.
I get it. No, no, no. I get it. But we don't run a country by cardboard sign. We do it by voting. And what happened last time was 6 million people who allegedly believe everything you believe and I believe about these conflicts, about what our priorities should be. 6 million of them sat the fuck down and voted with their feet. And
Yeah, and fuck them for doing so. But I don't trust anybody that's
they didn't
supposed to
get.
be voting for us that
They're not
continues to
getting
show
fucked.
this fucking delusion. No, I'm talking about the fucking leadership. I have no trust in the person to do the best for us that continues to show this lack of accountability, this lack of fucking living in reality, and continues to fucking do the things that he supports. It's just that simple. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't trust that person to continuously go on to vote for the best interest of me, my people, the people that I love, and to see that people can actually have a fucking better life. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is the statement from Schumer on from the Senate Democrats. When I talked to Secretary Rubio, I implored him to be straight with Congress and the American people about the objectives of these strikes and what comes next. Iran must never be allowed to attain a nuclear weapon, but the American people do not want another endless and costly war in the Middle East when there are so many problems at home. The administration has not provided Congress and the American people with critical details about the scope and immediacy of the threat. Confronting Iran's malign regional activities, nuclear ambitions, and harsh oppression for the Iranian people demands American strength, resolve, regional coordination, and strategic clarity. Unfortunately, President Trump's fitful cycles of lashing out and risking wider conflict are not a viable strategy. The administration must brief Congress, including an immediate, all senators classified briefing and in public testimony to answer these vital questions. The Senate should quickly return to session and reassert its constitutional duty by passing a resolution to enforce the War Powers Act. My prayers are with our brave American service members. That's from February 28th. That was right at the beginning of it when it happened. What impact did it have?
Oh, he's got tons of strongly worded letters.
Right. But what other power does he have? You want him to be louder about shit. You want him to talk
But
about they said it
meanwhile,
on the
there's the
floor.
reporting of behind the scenes of them wanting to stop the vote, not wanting to have the war powers resolution to put people on the record. Like, you understand, like, it's so far, like, he likes that this is going on. In my belief, I think that he likes this because not only can he
Wow.
see that
Okay.
the fucking, the Iranian leadership is going to be fucking eradicated to his hopes, but he also gets to call out Donald Trump for having enacted this on both sides. So he gets to talk out of both sides of his mouth in this regard.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So the idea is that he wants this war because of how strategically damaging it
I just
is
don't think
to
he's
Trump.
that. I just don't think he's that upset, and he didn't do everything that he possibly could to make sure that it not only I know he couldn't stop it, but to make sure that everybody's ass got on fucking record before this shit kicked off. To make sure that everybody, just like we did in Iraq, and said, "Hey, look at where people voted for this. Let's look back. Let's look at the chaos and the destruction that it caused, and the millions of fucking Iraqis that died, and let's look back at the senators that actually voted to say yes, let's send our men and women into this fucking combat zone." Right? I mean, there
So
was reporting to suggest from his aides in the background that they were talking about not wanting to set that vote, not wanting that vote to take place.
okay.
Why
Well,
would they
that
not
it
want
took.
that vote to take place?
I don't know. Well, the vote took place in the Senate on April 15th to pass a
After,
war
right?
powers. Huh? After what?
After that the war had been initiated?
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
they
the
didn't
whole point
know.
is to get people on record before it happens. You know what I mean?
No, but
That's like, you know what I mean?
no, he didn't
And again,
announce.
this is not
No,
like a,
wait.
hey, this is like both sides are the same and both sides are
It kind of is
by any
though, and I
stretch of
want
the
to address
imagination.
this. No,
It's
no, real
not.
quick.
I'm talking about individual fucking people in the
Yeah,
leadership of this fucking
okay.
party.
But did
One
Trump
person.
go
You
to?
know what
Sorry,
I mean?
did Trump? Am I unaware of Trump going to Congress and asking them for permission to attack Iran? Was there a notification of the attack that?
No, what does that have to do with it though?
Well, why they had the War Powers Resolution vote after it started?
Right, but they could have called it beforehand, right? When this was all being talked about and being discussed, right? I mean, there was obviously talk behind the scenes of what the fuck was going to take place. I mean, there was obviously planning going on to some extent. The
Right,
Republicans, I
but
know
that would
that
have been the
to a
Republicans
large
calling
extent,
it.
the Democrats were getting caught. I know, but I mean, there's no whispering. We knew fucking Eric Swalwell was engaged in sexual assault for all these years. All the rumors were spreading on Capitol Hill. We didn't know that Donald Trump was going to fucking send bombs into Iran all of a sudden. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Uh, okay, all prognostication aside, and whether we could, psychically, strategically, or actually understand what the fuck Donald Trump's plan is in any of these situations. That aside, once it happened, there was a push to get a war resolution vote that happened, and Republicans blocked a fourth attempt at it to pass it. They did it four. Democrats tried to pass or bring to the floor a war powers resolution in the Senate four times before April 15th. Republicans blocked it. Chuck Schumer didn't block it. Chuck Schumer voted for it all four times. Republicans voted against it. 47-52
Right,
was
but
the
what I'm
ultimate
talking
final
about, that
vote.
was after the initial reporting and after the war had already been initiated. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but you can't vote for like
That's what I'm
again.
saying.
The minority. Okay,
But this
the
is before
minority's not
anybody
gonna.
had voted on it. There was already people in the background talking about how they don't want this to happen before anybody voted on it. It wasn't about the votes. It was before anything had taken place.
Okay, I'm
It
not.
wasn't it
Okay,
wasn't
all
about the
right.
votes or
I'm
what they
just not.
thought was going to happen.
Sure. No, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I'm not sure what what chance of coming to the floor in a Republican controlled Senate a bill to curtail Trump's war powers before he's launched the
I
attack.
know, but that shouldn't stop us demanding that. That's what I mean. I understand the
Well, a bunch
limitations
of
of
people
power.
came
I
to the
really
floor.
do. I understand the
No, a
limitations
bunch.
of power that we have in government. That should not stop you for demanding, for getting out, for fucking even stopping the way that the fucking government functions, to demand that some of this shit happens the way that it's supposed to happen. Demand that Donald Trump go to Congress like he was supposed to go to Congress before the war. Like we got to stop doing this, like playing political games like it's normal times, right? Again,
I don't
the
think
same
they
way that we
are.
can't rationalize
Uh,
anything that Donald Trump does because it's fucking impossible with a guy so erratic. Like you have to think outside the box at this point.
Understood,
You know what I
but
mean?
I
Like
think
we
there's
can't.
like 20, like to my count, there's like 20 senators that gave big speeches on the floor, specifically calling for a war powers resolution, for the Pete Hegseth and everybody to come down and justify this, for the limitations set in the War Powers Act to be played out. Like all of them have done this. Like 20 Democratic senators, including Schumer.
20's not all of them.
No,
20's not all of them.
but
You know
these
what
are
I mean?
this the strategic leadership. They do that. They're speaking on behalf of other people. It's not like it's not again. I get it, but it's not because the other ones around them. They're speaking on behalf of other Democrats in there because they all voted that way. The point I'm trying to
Oh
make
yeah, yeah.
is
I got you.
right. Um, what's happening in this situation is it does sound like a two pair of pants situation. It does sound like a deep state conversation that somehow the inner workings of the Democratic Party are were somehow like rubbing their hands together and hoping that Trump would declare war on Iran so he would handle this problem we don't want to have to handle. And those people are strategically in the
I don't.
leadership, and that they are specifically doing things like stopping votes on the War Powers Act, which they are not, because again, we had four, and then the Republicans have just either fucked off or shut down the House or the Senate and left, so there wouldn't be another one, and it would have turned out the same way. The same thing with like
I
happened
just
in the
don't think it's a
House.
stretch to suggest that people that take millions and millions of dollars from the Israel lobby or APAC directly would maybe have some sort of attachment to the fucking goals and beliefs of Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel at this moment in time. I just don't think that's a stretch, regardless of what side of the fucking aisle that they're on, regardless of what statements they've come out and said or what strongly worded letters they've said. Like clearly we know these fucking a lot of these people are two-faced. Not all of them, but a lot of these people are fucking two-faced. We've heard a lot of the reporting of people that are fighting out in the fucking public, and next thing you know, they're in the next to the stall with the politician they were just screaming and yelling at, talking about where they're gonna go get a beer. You know what I mean? So
Gotcha.
it's like I understand there's a lot of gamery, obviously, that takes place in this, and I'm not saying nothing has been done. Maybe I'm going too above and beyond
I'm a
in
very
the
Libra
rhetoric that I'm
about that
using, and
stuff.
if I am,
It's all right. I'm very Libra about
no,
all
no,
that
no,
shit.
and right, hand up accountability. I have no problem saying when I'm wrong at any turn. Right, these are just my beliefs, and I just think a lot more in
Whoops.
different ways of doing things need to be thought about in this political time. Again, that is not normal, that nobody recognizes as normal. People that have been involved in politics for generations continue to say how unusual and chaotic and unpredictable this political or geopolitical time is because of Donald Trump, because of the sycophancy of the GOP. I just think now we got to start thinking a little bit more outside the box. We need to start recognizing people that, again, may have done great things in the past, may have done great things for their community in the past, but maybe right now at this existential moment in time, right now, aren't the best possible person for the leadership, and maybe we should be thinking about people that would have more down to earth beliefs, or maybe I'm not speaking that really, but would listen to the people in this country a lot more broadly and understand than somebody that's got millions of dollars in the bank, is fucking 80 something years old. You know what I mean? It's just, again, we talk about the need for youth in politics, or the need to get people that aren't all 80, 90 years old out of politics, and it's for a reason, because then people in this country don't feel like they're being listened to. They don't feel like they understand the plight that they're going through, whether it's going to the
Right.
grocery store or
And Nick
babysitting. A
Fuentes
lot
is
of these
young,
people
and
now,
Candace Owens is
they don't
young,
think twice.
sorry, Nick Fuentes is young, and so are all of his followers. Candace Owens is young, and so is all of her viewers. Owen Stroyer, or whatever his name is, from Alex's show, is a young dude. Like the idea that youth is a clean sweeping broom is
Now, obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it than just the fucking date of birth on your fucking license, but I
right.
mean,
And wisdom works in some ways. There are people, by the way, who receive more in APAC funding than say Ted Cruz, but vote with them on a less often, right? If you compare how much money they're getting and how much they, per their election, usually it's because the choice between them and another person is, so enormous or egregious that that's where they push, or it's a rich district and that's just what the costs of that area are. But like Ted Cruz, I think you could argue, has carried more water for Israel and APAC right to Donald Trump and bypassed the House and the Senate in terms of votes, committees. None of it fucking mattered because even though they were having committee resolutions or trying to bring stuff to the floor, and again, we're in the minority. There's at a certain point, like uh, I'm just dealing with the realism that we ended up in the minority through two routes. And the biggest one seems to be last time that 6 million people thought last year that Donald Trump would be better for Palestine, Gaza, and the Middle East than Harris. And they weren't Republicans. They were people who had previously voted Democratic, who were, by the way, benefiting from the rural broadband that Biden put in place, from the lead pipes that he's removing from our water system, like all the fucking nothing that Democrats do every time, like supporting SNAP and fucking the farm bill and all the normal shit, lowering the deficit, all the things that Democrats never do, but always do. Those people made a choice. And why did they make that choice? Was it because they weighed the material reality of what Democrats were delivering versus what they promised? Was it because they were like, Democrats are more beholden to APAC. Therefore, if I vote for Donald Trump, who's a rich fuck from Mar-a-Lago with, never mind the fact that his two only friends in life were dead pedophiles who happened to be Jewish, and one of them they even themselves think worked for fucking Mossad. How do you get there? How do you get from these guys aren't doing enough to the fucking bulldozer that Donald Trump is by 6 million votes in every swing state? How do you get there?
Well, there's a whole host of reasons people are that dumb and ignorant. And
They're
again,
not.
I'm right
Nope.
there with you and calling those
Nope.
fucking
It's
idiots out.
no. There's too much media around for them to be dumb or ignorant. They made a choice. They made an active choice.
A
They may
dumb
have.
choice. It would be sufficient to say they made a dumb choice, right?
No, I think they were insane. I don't think it's dumb.
Okay. Oh, well,
Dumb
is
is
that
lack
just
of
not
information.
a higher progressive of dumb? You know what
No,
I mean?
dumb is lack of information. Stupid is you have the
Correct.
information and you act anyways. Like why all rednecks, their last words are "watch this." That's stupid, not
I don't
dumb.
think anybody's going to keel over from surprise if I say it was a dumb move. If I said that, I don't think people are going to fall over in their
I
seats and
agree,
say,
but
"Oh,
I
well, that's not the right word
but
to
but
use."
I don't think it gives them. I don't think it gives enough credit. I think it was fucking evil, and I think a lot of them pretended to be pro-Palestinian and pro-peace and all this horse shit, and in reality, they didn't give a rat fuck. They were just carrying
Right, and
out
there was
some sort
also
of
a lot of fucking morons that were drawn out to vote because of Donald Trump, right? There was a lot of
n-
idiots that never voted to begin with that were drawn out to vote
not
and
by the
either
numbers
fucking
in
made a
2016, not by the same numbers in 2016. These were a lot of return people. If we'd have had 1-to-1 with the voters that we had in, and those new voters, both sides, and they'd all come out to vote, Harris would have won.
yeah, they fucked us. Believe I'm right there with you. Right there. I'm just saying there's
They
probably a whole
nothing.
host of reasons as to why
They
fucking
nothing.
people made the
We
choice that
fucked
they
us.
did.
We fucked us. They
Well,
weren't
I didn't
talk.
fuck anybody.
Well, that's not what I heard. No, what I'm saying is, you got. I mean, here's the thing. You got 20,000 plus and a lot more viewers than subscribers. That's how shit works. I got my 90,000 here and 100,000 on Insta and other shit like that. But we're still small potatoes in this big media stream. And so the direction of people believing either what they wanted to believe or actively participating in knowing they were full of shit and just being vengeful and shitty was enough to sway the election Donald Trump's way, either enough for him to steal it or enough for him to get it. And that means that in a representative democracy, a very significant number of people on our side were listening to the Hassans and the TYTs of the world and said, fuck it and fuck her, knowing full well that it would have a meaningful statistical disadvantage for Democrats, giving him the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
I forget now who he said he voted for. I'm not sure if he said he voted for Kamala or not. To tell you the truth, at this point in time.
Well, again, there's a
Again, I
strategic.
just think there's a lot that we haven't heard, right? I think there's a lot that we have heard from the people that
No.
are going
If
against
you're
him. I
not going
think
to
there's
give, hold
the
on.
big
If
clips
you're
that
going to
everybody
wait,
that can pull up.
wait. You've
Go for
got
it. Hit
you've
me.
got official.
Hit
You
me.
got. I know. I love you, brother. But I like you give official statements from members of the Democratic Party, and behind the scenes they must be having secretive conversations to keep fucking things. But Hassan, makes excuses for saying, basically being Ali G in his early days, just like Cenk with his fucking camel toe, spot the camel toe thing, and him saying that if there's grass on the field, let's play. If she, old enough to bleed, old enough to breed shit, haunting him from his old days. That's not what I'm even talking about. I'm talking about like his specific, strategic, regular material attacks on Democrats being the villain even when they're out of power. And then when they do things like the rescue package, like the Chips and Science Act, like trying to get student loans taken away, like debt eliminated, and an infrastructure act which has more climate change, like pro climate change, just like resiliency stuff for fucking coastlines and renewables and stuff in it than at any time in history, and allowing that to be like all swept away because you know they don't like the fact that Chuck Schumer's Jewish and therefore he must be more favorable to Israel than New York wants him to be, and that because of leadership, because of seniority, which is how many of these things work, and even though we're in the minority, it's got to be his fault that we're in this and not the people who actually made the votes and the people who actually stayed home. I am never going to stop vote shaming these motherfuckers, and anybody who does the two pair of pants, like two legs in the same pair of pants shit, the lesser of two evils thing, is directly responsible for the 6 million sit downs last time. That's what it does. That's the impact.
I just don't know if any critiquing or any criticizing
No, you
is
can
equated
criticize,
to,
but it's got to
again,
be based in
both sides
reality.
ising.
It's got to be based on the reality of what they actually have the ability to carry out, right? Because otherwise, you're just asking for us to go down swinging, loud, like mouthpieces yelling in the fucking dark. Unless we have the power to actually implement these changes, he makes the statement like the one I read to you, which is materially pretty much what everybody's asking for. At least in a from a leadership standpoint, it will be too middle of the road for some people in the beginning, but ultimately calls for a war powers resolution, calls for them to come down and do all these things. But Democrats don't have the power to do that. Republicans do. And why
Well,
don't we
because
have the
it's hard
power?
to believe that anybody that wrote that would then go ahead and vote to send more weapons and fucking and tractors and shit to a thing that he disagrees with. How does that make any sense?
All right,
How does that make sense? I
which vote are we
overwhelmingly
talking about?
disagree with
Hold
all
on,
of
whoa, whoa,
this.
whoa.
Chuck
Which vote?
Schumer's vote.
I know that. In
Chuck Schumer's
which
vote against
which
fucking
bill?
against Bernie Sanders' resolution the other day that would have stopped the aid to going, would have stopped the fucking $400 million, $490 million from going to Israel and another fucking aid and weapons package that would include tractors and fucking bulldozers and shit to fucking, to eliminate people from the fucking West Bank. I mean, what the fuck are we
Okay,
talking about here? How can you on
right.
one side of your mouth say, I don't agree in any way with this war and what it's perpetrated, what it's done to people, but also let me sign off on this fucking aid package to go towards the continued bombing and genocide of the people. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So that's the fact that people can speak out of both sides of their mouth, I think needs to be called out. Am I saying that they're just as bad? Absolutely not. Of course not. Absolutely fucking not. But the fact that we do have this to contend with is a fucking problem and should be like, okay, where do you really stand then? Because you say on one strongly worded letter you don't like what's happening, and then in the next fucking vote, you're with these other 7 or 8 Democrats voting for this shit to continue. Like
Okay.
I don't know
So
what, why, how.
on Wednesday, 40 senators backed a resolution brought by Sanders that would have prevented the sale of $295 million in bulldozers, and 36 members voted for a second resolution that would have halted $151.8 million in sales of 12,000 1,000-pound bombs to Israel's military. So there were two separate votes in that regard. Um, Last April, only 15% of the caucus's 47 members supported the measures, but in July, 27 members backed another batch of
Yeah, and
resolutions.
Schumer didn't even listen to his own caucus. The multiplications, the more the people that went up not supporting this had almost doubled, right? But Chuck Schumer didn't seem to listen to the coalition, didn't seem to listen to the people that have actively changed their minds in this stance from where they were just a short period of time ago. And then he went on to do this. So again, how do you tell me that you're against this war? You don't like what's going on. You don't support what Israel's doing yet. Continue to send them fucking billions and the equipment necessary to keep pushing people off their homelands.
Okay, so I'm with you on the on like his particular vote. Um,
That's what I'm
uh,
saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to draw more people into this. I'm not trying to make this a bigger like these are the examples that I'm seeing. The reports from behind the scenes from their
okay,
own aides, the voting
so
themselves, what they're doing just doesn't line up with the other things that they're saying. So it makes it hard for me to trust them. That's all.
Okay, then don't vote for him for Senate if you live in New York ultimately. And if there's a vote that comes up for another, minority leader, I'm completely fine with supporting that and suggesting somebody else. Adam Schiff would be a good example. He voted for these,
And that's
right?
why I love you.
There you
Because we
go.
always seem to come together at some point
That's
in
right.
this.
So, but the question is that where I find fault with it, and this is where it ventures into Hassan territory, is nil nothing no. When the majority of Democrats in the last round, even though they didn't last year, this round voted for to pass those to get those resolutions to the floor, even though they don't have the power to do it. These are just politically dick wagging. They don't actually have any material benefit. Bernie Sanders is his putting that forward is not going anywhere. It's not. It's dead because it will. Republicans are never going to vote for it, and they didn't. Anyways, even with a marginal number of Democrats
Okay,
voting
so
for
then it
one
was
or the
even
other.
fucking dumber for Chuck Schumer to fucking show his hand then. It was even fucking stupider for him to vote for that
Well,
then.
that right. Well,
Because he
that
could have slipped
so
under the fucking radar,
this
voted with it
is
knowing it wouldn't pass. You know
Here's
what I
Adam.
mean?
Here's Adam Schiff's thing. Being a stalwart of Israel, however, does not mean agreeing with all decisions of the Israeli government or Netanyahu. Just like being a patriot of the United States does not require unquestioning agreement at the policies of Donald Trump and his administration, said Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla in a joint statement after voting in favor of the resolutions. Both had previously voted against the measure last year. So that's where the shift is going. That's where I'm saying the public is shifting. I think the electorate is moving as well. Speaking before the vote, Sanders described the effort as an opportunity for Congress to stand up to the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, um, and which APAC specifically. Let us be clear: given the horrific and illegal behavior of the Netanyahu government over the last 3 years, the people have had enough. Support for Israel in this country has plummeted, citing a Pew Research survey, just like I did, finding that 80% of Democrats and 41% of Republicans view the country negatively. Maybe, just maybe, the Senate should start listening to their constituents and not just the wealthy individuals who fund APAC, and that is what today's vote is all about. I can't find anything on Schumer's reasoning for voting for it, or that he voted for it in this, but um, they described the sale of 1,000 pound bombs as being egregious, which
The
I
same
completely agree with.
jackasses that vote for the fucking shit every single time.
hmm Let's see if I can get if I can find Netanyahu's. Or, I mean, let's effort to block is there you go.
Freudian slip there, Chief.
Yeah, really. Thanks. Um, no, I was reading what was on the screen there because he,
No, and listen, I will while you're looking that up, I will rightly put my hand up accountability a lot of the times that my passion, my aggression, maybe the language that I'm using doesn't hit correctly. I'm not the most articulate. I can barely say the fucking word. So, you know what I mean? So it's like
I love
I
your
believe me,
accent.
I'm just saying I'm not I understand that I have ample shortcomings, you know what I mean? So, I'm not
hmm
always right.
Let's see. Yeah. So, let's see. Let's see. The note the no votes were Schumer, Gillibrand, Blumenthal, Fetterman, Coons, Rosen, and Cortez Masto.
It's
Was
always good. It's always good
or
to see the leadership on the same list with Fetterman. That's always what you want to see
Right.
nowadays.
The I'm trying to find if he made a statement about why, but it says Schumer was one of just 7 Democrats who voted against at least one of Sanders' resolutions, while roughly 36 of 40 Democrats voted to block the sales, an unusually high level of inter-party support for conditioning arms to Israel. I was trying to find if he made a statement on why. Just curious, not out of defense, but genuinely. why the reasoning of it was. Um, and again, not that this matters, but it again, let's see, had not
No,
put
totally
a
understand. Totally understand.
yeah, because it's dead. Okay, coverage notes that Schumer, longtime pro-Israel Democrat, voted with Republicans and a small group of Democrats who opposed Sanders' resolutions despite a majority of his own caucus backing them. Reports from is consistent with his historic alignment with AIPAC's oppositions and his argument in past speeches. The U.S. should maintain strong military support while urging it towards restraint. Progressive groups like Rokana publicly blasted him for this. New York-based activists and organizations such as Jewish Voice for Peace Action say Schumer and Gillibrand are betraying their constituents by opposing the resolutions, which again, they wouldn't have to have a name Jewish Voice for Peace Action if they weren't a minority outreach group within a minority outreach group. But whatever. Let's see. Yeah. So again, I'm with you about it, like him voting about this. But again, the bulldozers and the military stuff of this about an impotent bill that's not going somewhere. I don't know that. Again, don't care about his reasoning. Ultimately, though, what do you think the chances are that if a similar bill came to uh, came to the floor or came through committee or somebody presented it, and we had 60 Democrats, enough to pass it with just Democratic votes, even if Schumer voted against it? What do you think the chances of it would pass? Because
Well, I don't think he'd have any choice in the matter at that point in time, right? I mean, he'd
there you
pretty much be
go.
going against his entire fucking yeah,
There you go.
but what's to say that he'd want to? You know what I mean? Like, I don't
I
want
don't care if
somebody
he
that's
wants
gonna
to. If he's
be up there and
outnumbered, it
saying,
wouldn't
"Well,
matter.
only because the number of people that are against me, I'm actually gonna sign on to this." Where if I had the opportunity
Yeah, but I
not to
can't
sign
vote
on
him
to
out.
this,
I don't live
if
in
the
New York.
numbers
Neither
weren't
do
in my
you.
favor, that I
That's not my
wouldn't.
point. That's not
You know
my
what I
point
mean?
at all. But you and I both don't live in New York. We can't vote him out if we wanted to. But even if he was in leadership position, like he is now as the minority leader, if we had 60 votes and he was the majority leader, the bill would still come to the floor. There's enough votes for it to get it to come to the floor, right? And my guess would be there'd be enough Democrats to pass it by these numbers, especially now, if not more going forward. If anything, the pressure would be towards him to agree with it, or they'd have to like super narrow it to like minimal arms and just stuff for the Golden Dome, for example. There'd be a bill put to the floor to like increase funding, but it can only go to the Golden Dome stuff to protect them from incoming missiles, defensive weapons only. Like we had with Ukraine for a long time, right? When Obama was just giving them pillows and blankets because we didn't trust the leadership. That was the difference, right? Um, that is the difference. But right now, this is an impotent vote, anyways, and this doesn't excuse Schumer's, but they can yell about this. Sanders can bring these to the floor every half hour for the next 2 fucking years, and unless we take the
And
House
they
and the
should.
Senate, and unless we take the House, the Senate, and the presidency, it won't get signed, and there won't be enough
Yeah,
votes.
and we should fucking choke them to death with all of the fucking policies and procedures that we're putting into play that we could pull out of the woodwork right now that we should be putting into play. Whether it's the fucking War Powers Resolution of '73 and making people aware of what's going on with that and the power of
Well,
Congress that they're
again, four
supposed to
votes,
obtain, or
four
whatever it
votes.
is. You know what I mean?
Right, there were 4 votes on it before they left, and Democrats voted for it
No,
every
no,
time.
I mean, as far as the president's power, like his 60 days to utilize the military without actually, like, he has 48 hours to notify Congress. He
Yeah,
has 60
House,
days to
the House
utilize it,
has to
and
be
then
brought
90
to the
days.
floor. I know, but the House has to be brought to the
Doesn't mean that
floor.
people should know about it, though. You know what I mean? People should understand the rules and the laws that are being
And that
broken.
sounds like an
Whether or not
argument
we
with
have
the
the
news.
ability or the police officers on the fucking ground to change it. I mean, we should still be letting everybody know, hey, look at fucking what's going on here. These are the powers that are being broken. These are the rules, the procedures, whatever, all of them, everything that's being broken. We should be
Uh,
fucking choking the shit out of this government with all of the things that we could be out there saying as far as corruption, incompetence, war crimes, fucking shooting people in broad daylight in the fucking streets. I mean, whatever laws, everything, fucking choke them to death with it. That's
well,
my
that's the
thought.
thing. Then watch CPAC because Democrats are doing it all the time. They're just doing it in 5-minute increments in every fucking committee because that's all we get. I mean, and again, you want to look at how impotent the circumstance is against the administration and the fact that the House and the Senate are both run by people who will shut the fucker down rather than let stuff move forward. Period. Look at the guy, the Republican who's bitching about the budget. Have you seen that guy who comes to the floor every couple of weeks to go, "We're fucking doomed," and he's the
Is that the guy
Republican
that
budgetary.
teleported?
Yeah, it's the guy who does the budgetary warnings.
Uh.
You know, that guy comes out with his fucking paper and he's like, "This is where we are. We're fucking dead." He's the one fiscal
Right,
conservative left over from the fucking Freedom Caucasians that will come out and say shit. He's always in a flop sweat like
right.
Hank Paulson in 2008, right? He's always like, it's like he shits his pants the entire time he's there. They're in the minority and they don't listen. I mean, they're in the majority and they don't listen to that motherfucker. And that was
Right.
what they ran on. We're going to cut the deficit. Your prices are going to go down. Everything's going to be cheaper and prettier and have a gold fucking leafing on it. They don't listen to him.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I got
So,
you.
so the arguing, like bitching more strategically is not is an, it's not a tactic. It's not a functional tactic. It's good for us in what we're doing
I
because we're
know.
not elected, right? And there are legal limitations. The only thing that will ever change any of this is a blue wave of the Democrats that can get elected in the districts that you and I don't live in, that are not fucking AOC blue. Unless we have the numbers, this shit's not going to change. And it's just going to get worse because even on the margin, if Democrats are seen as even on the margin, you know, being weak because our constituency will pack up their shit and go home because if we don't get everything, nobody gets anything, which is the TYT moniker. If Republicans aren't afraid of Democrats because of that, because they know cyclically we're easy to back down, and that
And again, I've never
incremental change.
subscribed to this all or nothing aspect of
No,
governance
but
either. Like,
I'm
as much
saying
as I
has
want to see a substantial
right.
change, I honestly, I mean, I voted for Kamala. I was right
Yeah,
there calling for, the smart choice to be made, the logical choice to be made. Like, I by no means subscribe to, this both sides fallacy or this bullshit. And I'm not, I'm not caught up in, at some point not voting because of, because of the disagreements that I have or the critiques that I have. Not even remotely close. You know what I mean? So I just want to make that very, very clear for anybody that was listening to the conversation. It's not, I just, I'm passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. I do believe if you love something like I love this country, then you should be readily, able, ready, and willing to critique it, to criticize it, to call it out. And I
right.
don't care if that's blue, red. I don't care if you're Chinese. I don't care if you're black, purple, blue. I don't care if you got a large bank account, a small bank account. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're Christian. I mean, that's just how I feel. I was taught to stand up for what I believe, call it out, and speak out. And even if
Mhm.
you don't have the power to win that fight, you better fucking stand up for yourself and at least put up a good fucking showing.
Right. I think the definition of good fucking showing is part of the issue, depending on what state you're in and how to get elected in those states, and that's always going to be a rub. Um, Insofar as we know, from what I could find, Hassan sang a song "I'm going to vote for Donald Trump" during his voting live stream on election day the entire time, and most people believe he voted for Claudia de la Cruz. So this is exactly the fucking thing I'm talking about.
And again, like I said, I'm not sitting here to say that there's absolutely nothing that we could critique, call him out for, yell and scream at, get in a hot debate over. I found it very ridiculous that we were trying to ix or nix his entire community or the people that watch him and trying to, again, like a lot of the shows, like I said before, it's not about the conversation between the two people. It's about the people in the chat. Right. There's
Mhm.
there's always somebody in the chat a lot of the time that didn't know something that we were talking about. And maybe I didn't change
Yeah,
your mind. You didn't change my mind. But somebody in the chat was like, oh shit, I never fucking thought of it that way. Or
sure.
holy shit, I didn't know that fucking took place, or I didn't know that type of shit happened that way, or something like that. So again, it's not, it's just it's the fact that we're so willing to say, okay, we're not gonna do that. He's worse than Alex Jones, or he's worse than this person, or he's worse than that, and we shouldn't go on and try to again call him out for his bullshit, call him out for the shit that you disagree with, call him out for what he voted for, call him out for the way that he speaks to his audience, call him out for whatever the fuck you want, but go on there and try to speak to the audience that does watch him by the fucking tens of thousands and try to utilize that platform. And again, not everybody has to. It shouldn't be like a requirement, but I just don't think it should be like a blackballed thing. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like something that you're fucking excommunicated if you do it type of thing. You know what I mean?
like Newsom for bringing on Steve Bannon on his show?
He's not excommunicated. I'm calling his shit
Okay.
out the same way that I'm calling him out for fucking walking his statements
Well,
back on how much of a genocide is going on with Gaza and Palestine. The same thing that in his little fucking, his recent interview that he had with his fucking some schmuck in a restaurant, he decided to fucking walk that back and tiptoe around that again. So no, I'm not ostracizing him, not excommunicating him. Would I vote for him? No. But again, I'm calling him out for the shit that I think he should be called out for.
so if he's the nominee for the Democratic Party, you're not going to vote for him.
I didn't say that. I said I'll hold
You
my
just
nose
said you
depending
wouldn't
on
vote
whatever
for
the
him.
fucking situation.
No, no, no. You just said you wouldn't vote for him.
Choice. All right. I wouldn't. Okay, my mistake. I wouldn't fucking choose to vote for him. Okay, I wouldn't happily vote for somebody in that position. No. But would I, in the same position that I voted for Kamala Harris, obviously knowing that it was the way better of two choices, even that I had some critiques, some things to go against the Biden administration that I didn't agree with, absolutely. I mean, I'd do
Hmm.
the same thing again. I'm not going to put ourselves, I'm not going to not vote. I'm not going to put ourselves in a worse position because I have some problems or
And
critiques with some of these fucking
that
candidates.
is
That's not the
and I
person
think
that I am. You know what I
that's the
mean?
key that's the key reason why you and I can have this conversation, and I love you and appreciate you and your passion and your care about these things, and we can go back and forth on the details of these things and understand that ethically, morally, underneath, we're both trying to get to the same place, which I think is the heart of democracy. Um, uh, and I do not extend that same belief. I cannot suspend my disbelief when it comes to Hassan or other groups who have strategically driven third party voting up, have cried establishment when when Bernie, who was an independent, ran as a Democrat and then got out and then went back to being an independent and then ran again as a Democrat, basically using the Democratic Party as a super PAC while claiming he didn't have a super PAC, which is exactly what the DNC is. It is the superest of PACuses. And so, right. And
And I think you're right. I think to a large degree, you're 100% right that a lot of that angst and like animosity does stem from that particular situation. So absolutely, I grant you that
which
one. I
was
mean, it's
horseshit, by
kind
the
of
way. Which
nail
was
on the head
all
type of shit.
horseshit. Like the idea that it was
Yeah.
stolen from Bernie and all this, it was just nonsense. The man had a 30% ceiling. The only thing that was harder to beat was the glass ceiling on a female president. And Hillary at least managed to get us over that in the popular vote, which is an amazing jump, but still. Um, the reality is, though, is that Sanders claimed to not have a super PAC while using the DNC, its debate funding, its all the news cycle about it as a super PAC. That's what he did. And look, if you're going to piggyback, that's fine. But the minute he went back to being an independent afterwards and then tried to do it again, like that's why he didn't get the votes of the people in the primaries. It wasn't because they were all pro Hillary and war neocon people, which is was a Trump fucking talking point that Russia was pushing around because they knew she wouldn't support their attack on Ukraine the way Trump would. So they wanted to saddle her with that because they knew, there was a ceiling on what Bernie could do, but they could use that as a weapon against her. That's what it was. Hillary Clinton wasn't going to fucking invade Russia. She wasn't going to, and she or Harris wouldn't have invaded fucking Iran. And the limitations they would have put on the Israeli government in their position as president would have been, night and day. Clearly, from where
No, and I
Trump
have
is.
no empathy, compassion, or sympathy for people that obviously didn't see the fucking, the writing on the
Difference,
wall
right?
and what was going to come from letting Donald Trump get back
Right.
into
The idea
to
that,
second
and that's
term.
where I get away
Absolutely
from being
none.
dumb. I don't think it's dumb, and I don't think it's stupid. I think it's insane, and in a bunch of cases, evil. Because I think they
But
were
a
like,
lot of people
he'll
don't care though. A lot of people, it's just fucking. It's like it's the cool thing to do to go against the grain, right? I mean, it's just a lot of people. It's fucking. I think we're giving them not all of
agree, but
them,
you don't
obviously,
feed it.
to a large extent. I think you're spot on. But a lot of these fucking idiots, they didn't give a fuck to begin with. You know what I mean? They didn't fucking care about who they voted for the last time, if they did vote, or who they voted for this time. They voted for fucking Trump because they liked that it was going against the grain and everybody hated him. And then again, they voted for you know what I mean? It's just like a lot of them didn't give a fuck. And they're
Well,
assholes for it. And again, not excusing it by any stretch, man. They're just, you know what I mean? It's just there's
right,
fucking
and
idiots out there all
I
over the
would argue,
fucking
don't
place.
don't feed that wolf when it's at the table. which is give it
Right.
more reason to think it's
Yeah.
all fucking nobody cares. They're the same anyways. There's no difference because there clearly fucking is. The idea that Harris would have done any of this tariff bullshit, that she would have done the
Yeah.
Iran bombing in
Asinine.
the war, it's like it's fucking insane. Right? At a certain
Right.
point, that's not dumb or ignorant. It's malicious or crazy. These are your two options. And I just don't buy it otherwise. And anybody who's still fucking coin flipping like TYT and Hassan and a bunch of these other assholes are, and Dave Smith, they're all fucking coin flipping again. Like, what's really the difference? And that goes back to that whole point I was making where whenever it's fucking, when a Democrat is in the White House, Obama shoved the ACA down our throat. Went through House, went through the Senate, voted, went back and forth, had good stuff stripped out of it and shit put in because that's how it works. That's what you have to deal with. And what did the Republicans say? Obama shoved this down our throats, right? Then Trump gets
Right.
in, doesn't consult Congress, doesn't consult the Senate, and does something totally fucking illegal on his own based on his own, like, I had a feeling in my bones bullshit. And suddenly, what's their complaint? The fucking federal government, man, is spending all our money on war and doing stuff. Like, the fuck are you talking about?
I know, but that's almost expecting some sort of consistent through line in these people's rhetoric, policies, statements, propaganda. You know what I mean? There never was any to begin with.
I agree,
You know what I mean?
but
That
I don't want to
that
be
ran out.
guilty.
That ran out
I'm
really fucking
I
quick.
refuse to be guilty of it because of the expediency of the fact that we were drawn onto a war footing by how Donald Trump defines the argument, because
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
No, and again, like I said, there was never a moment in time where it was not clear to me the better choice or how dangerous the position we would be in if, in fact, Donald Trump did get back into a second term. And again, there's no there's no justification, no matter what rhetoric or terms or phrases that we use for any of that bullshit whatsoever right
Right.
now. And again, that's just exactly why I'm unwilling to let people rehab the images of Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like I will use their rhetoric against their own side because it's politically expedient for me to do
Mm-hmm.
so. But I will also reiterate their voting records, what they still believe, their unwillingness to a large extent still call out Trump for exactly how much he's responsible for. Like Alex Jones does this tiptoeing, even though he called MAGA dead cult. He's also still going to go on and say how consequential Trump was and how much he's not ashamed of voting for him. Like he's trying to do that like equivocation while also calling it dead, also trying to hold on to whatever subset of his audience
Mm-hmm.
that he doesn't want to lose because he likes to continue to sell them dick pills and shit.
Right. Yeah. So they're lined with lead and heavy metals and the kind of stuff that makes your dick stop working. Which I again, to maggots everywhere, go over to that site and buy them by the fucking truckload and guzzle them, you dipshits.
They
Um,
help you vote better.
yeah. Right. They do. I
Each
I
pill is
appreciate.
one more vote cast.
I appreciate you, and I'm glad we got into this conversation. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate you a lot on every front. And I'm glad we can have these conversations. And I take this shit, as do you, very seriously. I'm not arguing this flippantly or as a pissing contest. These are genuine concerns that I have because I think the result of the third party voting and the kind of anti-establishment shit that we ran into got us exactly where we are. And there's got to be a better way, and maybe it's in how we converse about it. Maybe how people figure out a new way, use our big boy words, to talk about this in a way that solves the problems, the internal critiques, on a different scale than acting like there's a false equivalency. And that's the hardest thing, I
Right.
think, for people to linguistically do most of the time, because maybe your audience won't think you care enough about something, or you're afraid that they're afraid you're going soft on an idea or something, that when something like that,
Mhm.
when in reality you're just like, no, there's a difference in this circumstance and we've got to be able to deal with it. We've got to recognize it.
And I think this is a great example of, I mean, to I hate to use the cliche, but of a big tent. You know what I mean? We're going to have lots of
Yep.
people inside of our tent that are going to want to go at things a different way, that have, grew up differently. My upbringing was, I'm sure, different than the Kentucky upbringing of Hal's, being from New England and stuff. So, I
Uh-huh.
mean, we're all a product of our environment. The people that we grew up with, our friends, our family. Doesn't mean that not all of them is necessary. I always bring it back to like the sports aspect, where a good sports team has somebody that is good at their position to do anything. Like you need the running back that's typically, a little bit faster, a little bit stockier. You need the safety
Hmm.
who's typically a little taller or skinnier. You know what I mean? Like you need the quarterback who's 6'7" and can fucking throw a rocket. Like you need all these people in here to make sure that you can utilize and have all these things covered. And these conversations
That's
are
right.
I think very beneficial. I learn a lot every time that I speak to you. I learn that. So
Hmm.
to maybe tone it down in a few places every now and again, which is good. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
need to do the whole back it down, but I do think these conversations are beneficial. I do
I
enjoy
don't
having
Here's the
them with
thing.
you as much
I
as go
emotionally,
for it.
psychologically, spiritually, self-righteously, I want what you want to accomplish. I just recognize that you and I have a tendency to, because we all have to recognize. I think especially if we're online or we're even on Shitter or Blue Sky or wherever people are, is that you're always dealing with a subset of a subset of a subset of people in your group, no matter what. And so the illusion that that conversation will reach the people who aren't in the group and bring them in, because ultimately the goal has to be to have all the things that we're trying to accomplish in reality. I
Mhm.
have, the idea is that, I mean, I'm going to let you go, but like we dragged on for another hour, and I so greatly appreciate it. But I like, had a joke back in the day that
This happens all the time for us. I feel
no,
like.
it's good though. It's good because we have a lot to talk about when I missed you. But I've had a couple of specifically I had a joke back in the day about the date rape drug when it was first in the news, like roofie and that kind of stuff. And I was doing a bit about this, and I had structured it, written it in a way that I thought it was abundantly clear that I'm against it, and that the joke is the absurdity of the name of calling it that way to solve it's just the rape drug, like because once the person's unconscious, date's over, you know that right, and it seems abundantly clear to me, but I had the punchline at the end where it should be most of the time, set up punchline, and against the audience kept thinking I was in support of it because of the way I was phrasing it. So I literally had to move the punchline to the top, basically do a one liner, and then all the explanations got other laughs because they knew the premise
Right.
a little
Yeah.
stronger. But it wasn't the joke that changed. The premise of the joke, the my self-righteous outrage at the concept of people even doing this, much less calling it the date rape drug, which is just fucking gross. Again, it was never a date to start with if that person planned on raping you. So fuck off. So like all those points, right? Which I feel very
Yeah.
passionately
If they
about.
didn't if they didn't make it to the ending credits of the movie, you can't call it a date.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not, and again, the joke was about, if you're like dating somebody in a coma, it's like it's not really a date, is it? And why am I paying for dinner if they've got their head in the soup? So like rando jokes in it like that, pointing to how fucking absurd it is was the point. But the goal was important, but the audience mattered more than my care about how it had to be phrased for me to feel right about it didn't deliver the message to the audience the way their ears were set to hear it because they hadn't
Mhm.
put as much consideration in. They didn't know the bit was coming. They didn't know it was, setting up towards this idea. I'm responsible for making sure they get it. They get the joke beforehand. And the same thing I think is true of how we speak about these things politically. That it's, and it's got to be more than just kind of like the not all language that racists use about black people on the right, which you hear all the time as a tap and get out. It's got to be based on reality. And I think Democrats are, one of our biggest problems right now is that we haven't beat our chest about the shit we do right. That you're talking about them being louder about it. You know, I completely agree, especially when it comes to programs we've already passed and the four war powers resolution votes that came up that apparently uh, was news.
I
So,
just think if we have the lack of power, we should at least have the pride in wanting to be that opposition. You know what I mean? We should have that pride in the fact that we are on the right side of history, that we
mhm,
are recognizing war crimes, we are recognizing an illegal, unconstitutional war that is completely destabilizing an entire region and causing mass hurt and pain on untold number of thousands of people
mhm,
in any region of the fucking planet right now. Like I just, you know what I mean? And a lot stems from frustration. I do like
right.
I'll recognize that absolutely, but it's just don't feel like, again, I don't think that the lack of power should have you like it shouldn't wrap like there's no hands wrapped around your vocal cords or your passion or your love or again your willingness to be on the right side of history and to want to call this fucking shit out every single time and want to find a different path that maybe people haven't thought of before, that we could find some sort of
Hmm.
resolution or again talk to the people, or again a different way to listen to the people. But there's so much, like, it's so in depth, this conversation, because you could talk about, it goes into money and politics and how people and politicians basically seemingly are out there, continuously trying to run their campaign as opposed to do the work that they said they were going to do while they were campaigning, type of thing. And I get that's probably a lot of like optics, as it were, and not so much the reality of the situation. But again, there's a ton of different topics in conversation. But again, I want to reiterate, I feel like, and again, I have no problem calling like talking about this stuff, because I feel like anybody that's listened to me for long enough knows that I have no qualms about talking about Donald Trump, the Republicans, the neo-Nazis, the white
Hmm.
Christian nationalists, the Zionists, as being the absolute fucking problem, as being the enemy, as us being in opposition to. So I just, a lot of the times, maybe I get wrapped up in thinking that people understand that that's where I stand, while also, here, let me see if I can, fix and better some stuff on my own side at the same time, type of thing. You know what I mean? So maybe it gets lost in translation. Again, I'm not as articulate as John Fugel saying, so I should
Nobody is.
maybe I can
Don't set yourself for.
try better.
It's an impossible standard to live up to. I've tried. Just don't bother. Just we'll just talk like a country bumpkin and a longshoreman.
Yeah.
Um,
We could just
I,
pretend to understand each other.
by the way, a vote on the war powers resolution in the House that would have forced Trump to remove U.S. forces from Iran failed in the House of Representatives last Thursday by one vote. Complete Democratic, support, complete Republican uh, support. One vote, 214 to
But
213.
is it based on the vote itself, or is it based on the timeline?
What do you mean?
Like I'm because I a lot I kind of, and I think a lot of people
Hmm.
do too. Like there was they called the war powers resolution the same thing that they wanted the senators and the people in Congress to
Hmm.
vote on. It is the same thing as this 1973 war powers resolution for the president to try to
Yeah,
curtail his powers, which again, in my instance, by the way I read it, only gave him more power to utilize the military. So it doesn't fucking make any sense to me
like
right off the jump.
AUMF.
But he's supposed to notify Congress within 48 hours. He gets 30 days, right? Or no, excuse me, he gets 60 days, and then he's got to go back to Congress. And if Congress doesn't authorize the continued use of the fucking military force, then the troops come the fuck home. Then Congress has the ability
Hmm.
to bring these troops the fuck
This
home, regardless of what the president wants, what the fucking Pentagon says. That's what I read into it. If I'm wrong, correct me, and I'll be more than happy to say where
It
I'm
was
wrong. But
introduced under Section 5 of the War Powers Resolution, which means from the actual law about that timeline. As a privileged measure, meaning House leaders could not simply bury it in committee. The text ordered the president to remove United States armed forces from hostilities with Iran unless Congress specifically authorized the war, essentially forcing an end to the U.S. participation in the Iran, absent an AUMF, which is what Trump would probably fold this over into, anyways. But I agree. In practice, it would have required Trump to wind down air and naval operations, intelligence support, and other direct hostilities within a defined time frame, while still allowing action strictly in self-defense. Final House vote was 213 in favor, 214 against. Um,
yeah, but what I'm
uh,
saying is the Congress has to authorize the continued use. Wouldn't that mean that they would need Democratic support in order to do
no,
that? The
because he could.
Republicans don't have enough alone to authorize the use of
This is
military force
this is
just on
exactly
party
what
lines.
you were asking for in terms of the war powers thing before the war started. Essentially, they're saying when this date comes up, or before, we need to. If we can enact it before. If the Congress passes this, they can enact the war powers. Pull them back from the president and say you don't have to wait 60 days. You have to do it now. That's what this vote would do. You got the 60 days, but before that, we can say fuck this and have a vote. And that's what this was. This is before the 60 days come up. That clock you're saying should be ticking, which it is. This would have brought him to heel, and made him start winding it down in 60 days. He could start winding it down then and say defensive measures, and then he could roll the AUMF into it.
But where does it say that that original vote is necessary? Because I thought, like I said, it was Congress's vote to authorize the continued use. So what is the first vote to even have it happen? They already have the way that it's written. It already gives Congress the authorization after that certain time frame. Then they go to either
This would be
authorize or not authorize the
this
continued
would be
military
before that
use.
time frame ends. That would be before this time frame ends. So that you could if you got 60 days, but if the Congress says you don't have 60 days, we think this is nuts. We took a vote. You got to come and do this now. They have the power to do that under war powers, the under Section
I was
5.
thinking that the way it was written, they would have to continuously authorize the military use, and that by that stretch, they would not, on party lines alone, have the ability to do so. They would have to initiate some sort of democratic involvement in order to continuously authorize the military use.
At the
I didn't
60
know
day
that it
mark.
could just be fucking. I didn't know that it could just be thrown away before it even gets to that point by this like initial fucking vote before we even get to the
No, no,
point
no.
of
It's the
giving
other way
Congress
around. No,
the
no, no.
power to vote on it.
This vote doesn't throw it away. This vote doesn't say the 60 days vote doesn't go in, the 60-day timeline doesn't go into effect. It says we're bringing that timeline up, meaning that if the rule says he's got 60 days, but Congress can get together before that 60 days is up and say, fuck this, we want an end to it now. That would be the war powers resolution that they're putting there. Like, start removing troops now, 30 days in, 10 days in. They could do it the same afternoon. And it was done under privilege by a Democrat putting it forward. And so, because it's part of we're at war, and Trump said war, and that was what cued it. That's why they didn't want to say war, right? That's one of the reasons, is because that created the privilege for them to be able to bring it to the floor. So 213 to 214, Massey joined with us. And then there were a bunch of presidents and other people who were, voted president or were not present themselves. So it ended up
But
being
correct me if I'm wrong. This isn't an explicit vote on the authorization of continued military use by
no,
Congress, right?
no, no,
This is
no,
a vote to
no.
just push up that deadline, is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is the text ordered the
Right.
president.
So there should be another vote where Congress. There should be another congressional vote on whether or not we're going to continue to
Yeah,
authorize the
but not
continued
until
military
60 days
use,
are up.
or we're not going to do that. Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. I was just trying to figure out if that was like negating that, or if that was basically
No, no,
just
no.
saying we're.
That
But if they
right.
if they moved the timeline up, but we're still going to wait for 60 days.
Well, they have to. That's what the war is. That's what the war powers right. That gives him 60 days. He's got
So
60
then,
days.
what was this vote on then?
This vote was
I don't know.
saying
Maybe
Congress
I'm
doesn't have to
misunderstanding
wait.
because it doesn't make
Hold on
sense to
one
me.
second. Hold on.
Yeah, go
My
ahead. Go ahead.
my headphones died. One second. I'm gonna jump to another pair. I got a spare. I'm like
And
a
forgive me,
fucking
Chad, if
F1.
you're screaming
I'm
at
like
me
a
in the
fucking
chat.
F1
My
pit crew.
apologies.
Hold on one second while this jumps back in, and I think I'll be able to hear you in a second. So no, what this appears to be, forgive me if I'm completely intoxicated, but what this appears to be is that the president has 60 days. At 60 days, he's got to come to Congress and make his case, which gives him another 2 weeks or so while they're making the case to drag this shit on however they want, right? And then, hold on one second. Let me make sure I've got an output on this one that adds this to here just to make sure I can hear what the fuck's going on. That the Congress can pull back that power from him. They can't stop the 60 days. And sorry, they can stop the 60 days limit. They can bring it forward, but he's still got that 60 days unless they have this vote. He's got at least 60 days. The Congress can shorten that time and say, no, get the fuck out now. That's what this vote was. It failed by one vote. One.
Oh, okay. I got what you're
So
saying.
this is
So
a
that would have
crucial
done
part of
that, but
this.
it
Hold
didn't pass. Got
on.
what you're saying.
I'll get
But
it
that
in 1
inevitably should
second.
bring up, therefore. Oops, sorry.
Hold on. I like because my headphones are fucked up. I can't hear you. So give me 1 second.
No, all good, brother. All
Trying
good.
to solve it
All
right
good.
now. These are those. Sorry. 3, 2, 1, and I should be able
Your
to hear you
headphones
now.
didn't know we were going to be on this long.
Lou, Lou, Lou.
your
Check, check.
your
Checky,
headphones
check.
didn't expect us to be on this long.
Son of a bitch. Oh, there I hear you.
We're back. We're back in
Yeah,
action.
we're back in action.
Sorry
Excellent.
about that. Like I was saying, I don't think your headphones expected us to be on this long.
Yes, no, I killed batteries in an entire set of headphones. I'm very proud of myself. So, yeah, this is a crucial part of this, right? That
But so just to reiterate where we were. So that vote failed. That would have pushed brought the timeline up. So he gets the 60
correct.
days. And then if I'm not mistaken, there's also some 30-day extension in there that's also written in that I also believe that I read in the way that it was written. I know I think that's kind of if they do in fact initiate, if I'm not mistaken, the withdrawal, then they get kind of the time to
Y-
plan it and effectuate the process of it. But again, whether or not that's what it actually says in the details there. But so, to the best of my knowledge, that there would then have to be some sort of other vote by Congress to either authorize the continued use or not authorize the continued use, right? And
Yep.
that would not be able to be done on party lines. They would need Democratic representation to vote alongside with the Republicans to authorize the continued military use, correct?
Yeah, and the only option Trump would have at that point is to use the AUMF as an excuse to do it and call the attacks that they did on say Dubai and other places as terrorism, which
Like
he
self
will,
defense. Yeah. Right.
and he will roll it into that, and this will become part of the greater war on terror. By the way, an argument
So just
that
hypothetically speaking, what's the earliest time frame then that Congress could vote on the continued or not continued use of military action based on that time frame? So if
within
tomorrow's 60 days, you would have to say at the very most would be 30 days after tomorrow, right? Considering that's the longest
yeah,
extension you could have on that.
yep.
So it'd have to be within the next 30 days.
And they could say we're
Right.
presenting a thing because we're winding it down, and so we're doing that. So trust us, bro, and to the House and the Senate leadership, and that's what they'll
Right.
do. And then they'll basically, it'll be. I mean, what we ended up with in Israel. Biden comes up with this 20-point plan for a demilitarized Hamas, but basically a Gaza as it as a 2/3 state solution, depending on whether you think the West Bank leadership is the same as Gaza going forward or whatever. And Trump comes in, claims that same deal as his own, with the exception of I'll let Netanyahu bomb for 10 more months. That was the difference. And they're not even through phase one. They're just still doing it. So and the I you
Yeah, it
know and
pisses me off the people that try to give Trump credit for ending it. Well, the Democrats continued it and the Republicans, no, they just gave Benjamin Netanyahu tacit permission and everything he's ever wanted in order to be able to make it seem like he's stopping it while conducting it even more aggressively behind the scenes. Because again, he's got the permission from Trump. He doesn't have to do it overwhelmingly and outright like he
right.
was beforehand. But people are still losing their lives. People are still being pushed out of territory. Like it hasn't stopped to the way in even close to the way that the Republicans or Donald Trump would have
And
suggested.
to the right, and which is exactly why I don't think it could be dumb or stupid that people didn't know this, because Donald Trump posted pictures of like a Kushner built hotel with his fucking name on it, with him dancing with fucking hula girls, basically, on the new Gaza Riviera. So the idea that there was going to be a split between these two is insane. I'm going to let you go because we could do this all day, and then we're going to turn into the positive Hassan, and I don't think the internet could take it.
No, I love you, brother. I do
Love you too.
appreciate you, and I do enjoy these conversations.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the fact that not all of these things, like we don't have to all be in agreement, but we're all pushing for the same goal.
Yep.
And as long as we could at some point get on either the same track or parallel tracks to get to that, then that's kind of where we're trying to go. And
Agreed.
sometimes hopefully you can learn stuff from me, and a lot of the times I learn stuff from you. And if we can come out of it a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more with a little bit more understanding of how again you or I feel or how we got into these positions, then I think we're doing some
It's
good,
very
some
healthy.
justice. And again, if people in
Agreed.
the chat have come out of this, hearing something maybe they didn't hear, or learning about some of the processes or whatever, then I think we're doing good. I think we're doing good. So I
Agreed.
appreciate you again. My apologies for the passion, I will say,
Never.
but again, it's just you have the same
Never.
thing. It's just I think it comes out in different ways. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just want to get it done. I want us to live in a world of reality where we actually make a difference for the people that we care about. And this, I'm not big on the take our ball and go home bullshit, that I think gets a lot of people stuck in these situations. It's just not good. So, anyways, I appreciate you, and I will see you again very, very soon. Take care of yourself, my brother.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you to the Sparklers. Thank you so much for everybody that comes over and joins the show whenever you can. I appreciate you, Hal, and CSL and
Absolutely.
Andrea and everybody that
We'll
helps out. So
raid
I
you
appreciate
whenever
you,
we
brother.
can, brother. All right. Cheers.
Thanks, dude.
There he goes. Ladies and
Later, man.
gentlemen, the wonderful and talented Boston Brian. A great conversation that, we should never be afraid to have, especially when we're having it amongst people that we respect and who, the reason honest to God, the reason why I feel like I can, I could talk about these things as passionately as I do with Brian is because I know his heart's in the right place. I know he wants this to work because he actually gives a shit. I do not believe the same about TYT and Hassan and that crowd at all. There was a period where I was like, they're just fucking stupid or they're dumb and don't realize the damage they're doing. At a certain point, I was like, nobody's that stupid and runs a multi-million dollar business. So I'm gonna go with they're doing it on purpose. Um, and and I know that like Brian means well. That kid's soul is in the right place.